I'm a little rusty on it.
I'll hum it for you.
Let's go. Can you hear me? Is it working? Oh yeah, it is. Okay. Hello, how's everyone doing? How's everyone doing on this fine day? Oh, this is the wrong hat. This is my work hat. 1 second. Oh, that's better. Ow. Okay. All right. How's everyone doing today? Okay, so let's do the intro really quick, I guess. Ow. I get for not brushing my hair before I try to tie it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you might be watching this. My name is Josh, and welcome to my channel. On here, we talk news, politics, current events, other stuff. Sometimes we talk to regular people. But either way, it's another day. It's March the 13th, 2023. So today is, I feel like, a bit of a wonkier day. I did it again. I did it again, didn't I? I did it again, didn't I? Okay, here's what we're gonna do. No, we're not gonna restart. We're just gonna plug that in. God, that's like the second time I forgot to do that off rip. So weird. I never forgot to do that until last stream. Anyway. I'm not an economist. I'm not like, to understand the Silicon Valley Bank stuff. We're gonna watch some videos, kind of get an idea, and then kind of respond to one of the prevailing, I guess, narratives that's been going around. So we'll take a look at that. Because the question really becomes, like, after we kind of understand the bank crisis that's going on right now, which I don't know how much of it is a crisis necessarily, but after we understand that, the question needs to be, is this due to wokeness? Is wokeness at the heart of all of this? I think that sounds a bit absurd, but some people seem to think otherwise. But either way, then in other kind of, again, wonky news, I kind of want to look at the LEARNS Act that got passed what is it, mid or late last week in Arkansas, which seems to have led to the rollback of some child labor laws. So kind of want to take a look at that. And then what else do we have after that? Oh yeah, and then we'll get into kind of the more lighter stuff, the Oscars, a few other topics. But either way, let's get going. We're a bit late. Sorry, had to eat dinner. But let's take off.
Go and sell the bonds, but
A rough week for the banking industry.
The collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. The second biggest bank collapse in U.S. history.
The Silicon Valley Bank collapsed on March 10 after a run on deposits doomed the tech-focused lenders' plans to raise fresh capital. This prompted U.S. regulators to step in with emergency measures, including seizing another bank 3 days later, in a bid to ease fears that depositors might pull their money from other lenders. WSJ bank reporter Rachel Ensign explains how this crisis unfolded and what could happen next.
during the pandemic.
Okay, let me say for the record, again, I said it earlier, I'm not an economist. I this stuff makes my fucking eyes go cross when trying to understand some of this. So, bear with me on this. I know this stuff can be confusing.
Silicon Valley Bank had gotten all of these deposits. Their deposits tripled. It was a huge, huge, huge influx. And they did what banks do. They took some of the deposits and made loans, but they also invested a lot of them in securities, which are pretty safe. Some issues had been bubbling under the surface at Silicon Valley Bank since the Federal Reserve started raising rates. When rates rose, the bonds fell in value. It's not a big problem for you unless you have to go and sell the bonds. But deposits started leaving the bank faster than they anticipated. and they had to sell their bonds and take a very big loss. The bank made an announcement on Wednesday night that it needed to raise capital and was planning to do that the next day. The investors completely freaked out, sold off the stock, and then
makes sense.
Started where people tried to withdraw $42 billion in deposits just in that one.
Okay. So if my brain can like synthesize this information, it seems like they got a lot of free money, or very, they got quite a bit, a decent amount of low interest money. Spent money on handing out loans, but also bought securities and bonds. And then as some people started taking their money out of the bank, obviously they have to give them the money that they deposited into the bank. Then as money started leaving the bank, they had to sell their stocks of, their stock of bonds or whatever it might be. And then investors were like, what the fuck? We're actually losing money on these now because of the way the interest rates have risen. So they started pulling their money out of it. And now, the bottom's falling out from underneath, if I'm understanding correctly. Okay.
And by Friday morning, it was seized by regulators. The regulators have responded in a way that they're hoping stems the panic. The Fed said, we're going to be offering this lending facility that's a backstop. We're going to be insuring all of the deposits effectively of this bank that failed.
Now, if I remember correctly, through kind of listening out in the real world, the FDIC only insures, I think it was like $250 million or something of any any of the depositors' money. So if you have $251 million in this bank, the FDIC would cover 250 million of it, but that 1 million you're going to be out of in a normal situation. But from what I gather, one of the big talking points is that they're going to be covering all the money that people might be losing from this, which, I'm not. So a problem I have with that off the bat is like why is this the scenario where the FDIC is going to cover all of those depositors' money? Like, they didn't cover 100% of people's money back in 2008 or anything, right? So it's I'm a bit curious about that. Anyway,
the collapse matters because it could have broader economic effects. There was the risk that this panic would spread to other parts of the banking system. We saw some really significant news with some of the banks that investors were most concerned about last week.
Yeah, I think I saw,
Signature Bank, a New York-based bank, was also seized on Sunday night. It is the third largest bank failure in U.S. history. And First Republic put out a statement saying they'd gotten some extra money from the Federal Reserve and also from JP Morgan. They're hoping that reassures their investors and their depositors.
Yeah, keep in mind, the investors and the depositors are different entities, and the investors are just looking to make a return on their, investment, basically. They're just looking for an ROI. But by them pulling money out of this bank, out of their investments into these banks, they're, pretty much pulling the rug out from under the depositors, who are just using a bank I would presume most people use a bank, and most businesses.
The key thing to watch for is the panic over? That's the big question. Do people stop pulling their money out? Do investors and customers are they reassured in the way that the government would like them to be?
Something tells me no.
To step in with emergency measures.
A rough week for the...
No, what? I clicked next. Give me this.
As we track the latest developments surrounding the closure of SVB, want to bring in a journalist who's been following this story super closely. Liz Hoffman is here, Semaphore Business and Finance Editor. Over the weekend, she reported on a number of hedge funds offering to buy startups' deposits that were stranded. That was, of course, before the government stepped in. But we're all trying to figure out, has what the Fed has done stopped things?
I think they haven't so much stopped the run as they've said they're going to fund it.
Right.
Right. You'll note they didn't say every deposit in the country is now insured. I think mostly
but
for
they kind of
legal.
did implicitly.
A little bit, but I think there's some gray areas where they can actually do that at the FDIC. And they said, we're not going to stop this, but we are going to fund it. So they opened the spigot, and via the banks are going to put just a fire hose of money into deposit.
The big question is all the folks at J.P. Morgan and Bank of America and Wells Fargo whose phone was ringing off the hook over the weekend because people wanted to open up accounts, whether those calls stop or do they continue? And if they continue, we got a different problem.
Agreed. I don't know. I mean, First Republic stock is down 60-70% pre-market. That's a different, than
even
the deposits.
With the promise for the
even with the and they raised money last night separately from the new Fed facility. So,
but is that the high sign? Is that the high sign that I'm hoping we don't have a problem? But do you look at that and say, okay, there's a problem here? Or do you think that's idiosyncratic to that bank?
I don't think it's idiosyncratic. My sense is all these regionals are still here on Friday, but they're half as big as they were last week. And by the way,
so keep in mind, this also seems to be mostly just affecting local, regional banks, which is not great.
We're going to replace this incredibly cheap deposit funding with prevailing Fed funds rate in the new facility, which means their margins just collapsed.
Right.
So none of these stocks are going to trade at
S&P
remotely what they traded
regional
at for the last couple of years.
Right. They're not going to trade because the business model's not the same. But are the deposits going to stick? I guess that's the.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We looked at this is probably only tangentially related, but we looked at Jerome Powell last week, talking about the impact of the Fed raising their interest rates and kind of the impact on what that's going to have for normal people, which is going to be I think I spoke about it with the somebody in chat mentioned it as well. If you're working at a retail store right now, you're probably noticing that hours are getting cut, and if people are leaving, if people just left your job or left, or got fired, whatever it is, you might notice that they're not really rushing to replace that person. And kind of those effects. And this is, I think are kind of the million little micro effects, but we're looking at it seems like a much bigger, a lot bigger of a wave here.
I mean, it's not really an issue, right? Because if they can take their assets and take them to the Fed and give that money to the depositors, it'll come down, but they'll just be a lot smaller than they were a week ago.
Are you in the camp of this becomes disinflationary insofar as if all these small banks, either lose deposits, get treated like systemically important institutions, therefore have to raise capital requirements and all sorts of other things, means that the loans that they're going to be providing folks are going to cost a lot more, meaning there's going to be a lot less?
The answer is yeah, but the other way to look at it is that these loans were massively below market for a long time. And look, I've heard slightly conflicting things, right? I was talking to a banker at a GSIB over the weekend. He was kind of
fuck, dude, I gotta be honest. My fucking brain is banking such I feel like banking is one of those industries where things could be simple, but it always feels like the banking industry is finding new ways to be as complicated as possible to make sure that normal people don't have an understanding of what's actually going on. We understand, we have a general understanding that the stock market, a lot of the stock market is pretty much gambling. That's kind of what you're doing from if you detangle it from all the nonsense and all the legitimizing terminology and everything else, you're gambling on whether businesses will succeed or fail. And a lot of that comes down to speculation, and a lot of that comes down to influence that some people have over others. It's why you'll see Joe Schmo show up on CNBC or whatever the fucking stock channel is, and they'll say, oh, I don't think this is going to go well for this company, and then their stock drops, and then everyone kind of follows the leader on that sort of stuff. But when it comes to bank stuff, it's always it's usually a bit more complicated. But I know I'm not talking a whole lot. I'm really trying to absorb the information, but
complaining, saying that, well, our competitive advantage
is
that we get excess deposits because people think that we will be here tomorrow, and that we're going to lose that to the small banks. The other side is, why would you have your money at one of these tiny banks when there's even a remote risk of this happening again? So I don't know. I think it'll be a very messy couple of weeks in the short-term funding markets.
What do you make of the venture capital community over the weekend, loud and proud on Twitter, begging for a bailout.
Yeah.
This is a community
Naturally.
you've written a lot
Everyone
about
always wants a
over the years,
bailout.
and I'm thinking of the David Saxes of the world and everybody else who was Jason Calcanis screaming, we need a bailout, we need a bailout, at the same time that the venture capital community has historically been relatively libertarian, called for less regulation. For the most part.
Everyone's a
SVB
libertarian until they
called
need the
for
money.
less regulation. In fact, less regulation that probably allowed this to happen to begin with. Special tax treatment in the form of carried interest. Does that change, do you think, in the public mind's eye?
I would
In the
think
way
so.
people look at venture capital?
I mean, there's no ideologues in foxholes, right? I mean, that stuff goes out the window quickly.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't have bailed them out. I'm just suggesting that there might be some other ramifications.
I totally agree. I think this will not make anyone in Silicon Valley more popular with the rest of the country. I think a little differently about the moral hazard argument. The depositors at Silicon Valley Bank were not mom and pop, but the checking and savings account product, the people who open those can't realistically, I don't think, be expected to stay on top of bank balance sheet risks. Like, that's not their job. And if you're going to push that to depositors, then what are banks here for, right? So I think this is a little bit of a different argument than 2008, but like politically, I would expect there to be a lot of...
Yeah, I think it's fair.
No. Stop. We're watching more stuff before we get to poll. Till we get to Tim Drool over here. Okay. Can you go back to the playlist I wanted, please? Okay. So because I'm I'm a leftist shill, I also want to see Anna talk about this because when it comes to economic issues, I trust Anna on a lot of this stuff. She has a good handle on this stuff, a better understanding. That being said, we're also gonna have to pump it up to 1.25 speed. This is a bit of a longer video. Anyway, let's go.
Fallout following the historic collapse of Silicon Valley Bank.
Why did they?
Are you an Etsy seller and didn't get paid today? Neither did I.
The demise of the nation's 16th largest bank and once a titan in the world of tech startups, wreaking havoc, including for sellers who use
Look at that
e-commerce site
dog.
Etsy. The company acknowledging
boy.
some users aren't getting paid because it distributed money through SVB.
Makes sense.
Silicon Valley Bank, where many tech startups had deposited their money and did their banking, collapsed over the weekend and is now taken over by the FDIC. The federal government has stated that all depositors will be made whole, including those who had more than the FDIC insured $250,000 deposited in the bank. And
I think I said 250 million. It's only 250K. God, that's woo. Now, again, like I made that example earlier, but can you imagine you have like $1 million, you have $1 million in that. You're getting a quarter of that left. Only a quarter of that is insured by the FDIC. Like, yeah, and this is why people are pulling their money out. Okay, that makes more sense.
Explain
Okay.
why they made that decision in just a moment, including why the bank collapsed in the first place. Now, it's important to understand that there's a difference between
I guess that would be absurd to have like a quarter of $1 billion.
For the investors for the bank. There will be no bailouts for the investors for the bank, okay? This only has to do with
That's good.
companies that had deposited money into the bank, which has now collapsed.
Right.
So this was done to prevent more bank runs and a complete collapse of the U.S. banking system. But what went wrong in the first place? Why did the bank collapse? Well, last week,
educate me, Anna, do it.
Silicon Valley Bank announced that it had sold some government bonds. Okay, so SVB said it had sold $21 billion in securities at a loss of about $1.8 billion after tax. It also set out to raise about $2.25 billion in capital. Now, what happens with banks typically is depositors deposit money into the bank, and then the bank invests that money. Now,
I said this.
SVB
I think
decided
kind of
to invest its money in what is
less.
typically thought of as safe investments, right? Government bonds. But when interest rates went up, the value of those bonds went down. And as tech companies needed money and were withdrawing money, Silicon Valley Bank did not have the liquidity necessary to provide the cash for the withdrawals. So that is why they had to sell those government bonds in order to have the capital necessary to provide the money that the depositors wanted through their withdrawals. I have more details on this and what went wrong in just a moment.
Yeah, so they're basically selling their investment to pay their depositors. Okay.
Cenk, so far, any thoughts?
Yeah, tons of thoughts. So I want to explain a couple of critical parts of why this happened. And then, of course, we're going to get to what the correct course of action is and why it's the correct course of action. So first of all, Silicon Valley Bank had tons of startups in it, which means that about 95% of its money was not insured. Because if you have a lot of retail clients, Bob and Joe and Sally, they're all insured because they're under $250,000. But a lot of the businesses are not insured because they're above $250,000. They have a lot of money above that they put into the bank. Now, the part that nobody's talking about is that what's triggered all of this in the first place was that VCs stopped giving money to startups. Okay, and part of the reason they stopped giving money is because
I know VCs. They're in Silicon Valley.
Financial equation for whether you fund
I know that.
startups or not.
I got that one.
So the startups had to use more of the money that they had in the bank. So now money's starting to go out of the bank, right? No problem. They put it in safe treasuries, as Anna told you, right? The problem is because of higher interest rates, the treasuries went up. The interest rates go up, and they're the ones that they have at lower interest rates, when they go to sell it, they lose money on. Exactly. They still get money, they still get assets, right? To be able to pay their depositors, but they've lost some amount of money from them. Then they are forced, because of the amount of money that they have lost because of this economic condition, to go raise a little bit more capital. That's when word hits the street and panic starts.
Exactly.
At that point, the same VCs turn around and they tell all their startups, get your money out of the bank. We got a run coming. And 42 billion pours out, and then we're gonna tell you the rest of the story.
Exactly. As the Wall Street Journal reported, venture capital firms reportedly began advising their portfolio companies to withdraw deposits from Silicon Valley Bank. On Thursday, March 9th, customers tried to withdraw 42 billion worth of deposits, about a quarter of the bank's total, according to a filing by California regulators. It ran out of cash. So there was a bank run, due to panic. And as a result, the federal government had to step in. Now, over the weekend, there was a lot of confusion. There were a lot of questions as to what would happen to the depositors who were not insured, right? And so Janet Yellen kind of gave, Treasury Secretary, of course, gave a mixed signal about it. But what's now come out is that they will, in fact, make all depositors whole, but they will not bail out any investors, which I personally think is the right way to go.
Fucking base.
I'll explain why in a moment. But to summarize, the Federal Reserve's sharp and decisive interest rate hikes played a role in a few ways. They reduced the value of the bonds on SVB's books and spurred depositors to withdraw money from the institution as the tech industry cooled. The venture capitalists who made SVB such a big deal in the first place also played a role in egging startups to pull their funds from the institution. Okay. Now, the bank made some pretty terrible decisions. And in the lead up to what transpired, the collapse, they had lobbied hard and succeeded in loosening certain banking regulations that would force them to have capital on hand, right? Enough liquidity on hand to deal with a situation like this. So we'll get to those details, but here are some of the other things they did. Their clientele was not diversified. They mainly focused on the tech industry, the tech sector, and look at what happened to the tech sector in recent months, right? It's been gutted significantly. And so the tech sector went from depositing a lot of money into the banks to all of a sudden needing to withdraw a lot of money from the banks. So that played a role as well.
Okay.
So the banks were pretty flush with cash. At one point, for instance, SVP focused on the tech sector because they went from having $60 billion in deposits in 2020 to more than $200 billion in deposits by 2022. Now, the bank's investments also were not diversified. It invested heavily into government bonds. But to be quite honest with you, if it had invested in other investment vehicles, I don't know if that would have worked out well for them either.
Maybe a little diversity would have helped, but overall, that wasn't the major issue. The interest rate's moving.
Remember, Wu-Tang Financial never lied. It is wise to diversify your bonds. That is like, in terms of like finances, you never really want to be basically tied to one ship. You want to be like spread out across like a lot of different sources of investment, basically, which it seems like they were not, which
was a major issue. But I don't think that they had particularly risky investments.
And the bank, by the way, was already in trouble before the bank run because, again, when interest rates increased, depositors started looking for banks that offered higher interest rates as well. So that's another part of this story. So, for instance, if you go to one of the big banks, right, whether it's JP Morgan Chase, if you go to, I don't know, a Bank of America, their savings accounts pay you nothing in interest, okay? The smaller banks are a little more attractive to people who are looking to save or companies that want to deposit their money because they will offer you an interest rate. So there's one place that I bank at, it's not one of these big banks, and it offers a 4% interest rate on my savings account. Pretty sweet. Why wouldn't I put my money there? Of course, it's FDIC insured. I do not have more than $250,000 in that account, not even close. But you guys get the point. So all of a sudden, you also have this issue with Silicon Valley Bank trying to keep up with the competition by offering higher interest rates to depositors. Now, what happens now? The FDIC, as I mentioned, has made it clear that all depositors will be made whole, and I think that was the right way to go. Before I explain why I think that was the right way to go, Cenk, why don't you jump in?
Yeah, so look, guys, let's be clear about a couple of things. First of all, no way to bailouts for the bankers. And so why would we give them anything, let alone bonuses or the insanity that happened in 2008, right? So no way to shareholders of the company, you took a risk, that's called capitalism. There goes your money, and it should be, okay? You executives, likewise, maybe even worse. Okay, so the depositors. So some people were like, hey, above $250,000, ha 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 ha, sad day for you. No. Guys, think about it, right? So let's say there's a company and they're an SVB and they've got, let's say that they're a small to mid-sized company, they got $10 million in the bank. So they're gonna lose $9,750,000. Well, guess what's going to happen? They're bankrupt instantly, right? They have no money. They literally have no money to pay anyone. So the next time payroll comes up, they have to tell all their workers, sorry, but you're all fired because we literally have no money. So it's not a ha-ha situation. Now, it could have affected up to 5 million jobs. It wouldn't have been that many because some found a way to get their money back and there would have been some avenues, but tons and tons of jobs would have been lost. That's totally true. Okay, now the second part of it I think is equally important. If you say depositors are not safe at small to mid-sized banks, every business in the world is not gonna go, oh, maybe I lose all my money. No, they're all gonna run. They're gonna run to Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, et cetera. Every one of them will. And it doesn't matter if you catch feelings over it. It doesn't matter what you think of it. They're not gonna risk that money and risk going out of business. They are all, literally all of them, would have moved to the top 4 banks.
So in other words, all of the banking in the country will further be concentrated in the big 4, which we don't want. Okay,
no, guys, anyone arguing that we should have done that doesn't understand anything. I'm sorry, but it's true. You want JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citi, et cetera, to be even larger? You want them to be these giant conglomerates that have almost all the money and power? Are you out of your mind? If you didn't guarantee the deposit of money, that is a law of mathematics and business. There is no question it would have happened. So as people were like cheerleading it, I'm like, no, are you insane? Don't do that. That is so counterproductive. And a lot of it was driven by emotion. Emotions I understand, by the way, because these guys rip us off and they deregulated. Right. They pushed for deregulation. We're gonna talk about that later in the show. But it was egregious what they did. And punishing the depositors would have been totally counterproductive.
And it's easy to get caught up in labels that trigger certain connotations, right? That I totally understand. So we're talking about tech startups. So you think tech startups, you think bank, you think everyone's a bad guy and everyone should be punished, including the depositors. I disagree with that. In fact, a lot of these startup companies, like Etsy, for instance, if Etsy were to go under as a result of this, well, think about how the vendors on Etsy, these are not millionaires and billionaires. These are people who are selling their handmade stuff.
Yeah, Etsy's rather small. The biggest problem with Etsy is how many like very obvious foreign shops are on Etsy that like they're obviously mass producing a bunch of shit, but they sell their stuff on Etsy as well as they kind of cosplay as like small independent craftspeople or whatever. But yeah, you take down Etsy, you've got probably a couple 100,000 people maybe just completely fucked, their entire an entire source of income is gone.
Selling vintage clothing or whatever it is. I don't think they should be punished over the deregulations that were passed by our government, which allowed for the banking system, and this bank in particular, to avoid having the capital on hand, the liquidity on hand to deal with a situation like this, right? I don't think the depositors should be punished. And I'll give you an example of what some of these workers would have to deal with, right? A lot of Etsy workers had to deal with some big questions today. I wanna go to this video so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Etsy used SVB to facilitate some of its payments to sellers. Now, the company telling Yahoo Finance that it, quote, recently experienced a delay in issuing payments to some sellers.
I'm freaking out. Those funds feed my family and pay my bills.
Amanda Nielsen runs her handmade soaps business through Etsy.
Seems a little unfair, doesn't it?
It does seem unfair. It really does.
She says she's no longer receiving deposits, though Etsy says it expects to pay sellers via other payment partners within the next several business days.
I had no idea this was going to affect me.
Yeah, so I don't know how it would be beneficial in any way to advocate for something that would destroy the livelihoods of ordinary people. And the depositors didn't take risky bets, right? The depositors just deposited their money in a bank that they unfortunately trusted. And because of deregulation and because of the behavior and the poor management of the bank, they collapsed. And so that's just where I'm at. And I agree with you, Cenk. Any investor into the bank should not be bailed out. And there is no argument from the federal government that any of them will be bailed out. The other thing I want to just quickly mention, because I think it's important, is how the Federal Reserve is stepping in, because that is a little concerning. So the central bank said that it would make additional funding available to banks through a new bank term funding program, which will offer loans of up to 1 year to banks that pledge US Treasury securities, mortgage-backed securities, and other collateral. Up to $25 billion from the Treasury's Exchange Stabilization Fund will backstop the Fed lending program. Many of those securities have fallen in value as the Fed has raised interest rates. I mean, we just talked about that, right? The terms would allow banks to borrow at 100 cents on the dollar for securities trading potentially well below that value, potentially putting the government at risk of losses incurred by banks. Critics said the move would essentially offer a backdoor subsidy to bank investors and management for failing to properly manage interest rate risks. And I think that read of it is correct. What do you think about it, Cenk?
Yeah, so look, the Fed's been doing something really questionable for a long, long time. This is a tiny, tiny percentage of it, but overall I'm worried about the the general movement that the Fed is going in. So in the old days, the Fed's already a black box, right? So it's run by the New York Federal Reserve, which is run by the biggest banks in the country. And so they wind up printing money and giving it to themselves over and over again. They get, in the past, until the interest rates started going up, they get money for almost nothing. And then they charge you an interest rate for the loans and they make the difference. It's free money. It's unbelievable, right? So, but now they started doing something more dangerous in around 2008 when the crash happened. They started buying things. The Fed buying things makes no sense. And I've had every expert in the world on this show and asked them, and they all go, I don't know what it means either.
I mean, Nomi Prinz has written about this extensively. She has done many talks about this that you can watch on YouTube. It's a disaster what the Fed has been doing. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, so they buy things, but they sell them. And so every once in a while, they'll come out and say, hey, you know, AIG, we got all of its assets, we paid people, but we sold it many, many years later, and we made money on it. The Federal Reserve made money on it. Yeah, but if the Federal Reserve can make money on something, you could lose money on something, right? And now it's got trillions of dollars on its balance sheet. I don't even understand what it means to have a balance sheet for the Federal Reserve. And by the way, neither does any expert in the world, okay? So what that means is if the Fed winds up losing a ton of money, what does that do to the dollar? What does that do to the economy? Since it's a black box that kind of prints its own money, no one knows. And it's the last backstop. And Ray Dalio, one of the greatest investors of all time, was here and he told us, the Federal Reserve is the very last stop. If something goes wrong with the Federal Reserve, it's basically an absolute international calamity where everything melts down. So they're playing a pretty dangerous game over there. Now this one is treasuries, which eventually go to them anyway. So if they just wait for those to come due, they almost by definition get their money back. So it is very unlikely.
My fucking head. Okay, so this is also the thing that like, this is why we're like spending a little bit more time on this and I'm not really talking as much, is mainly because like, fuck dude, like what am I like I don't even know what to say. Like fuck, if we're looking at that kind of scenario, right? Like, you know, where like the Feds actually has like some vulnerabilities in that like realm, like do we need, as regular people, do we need to be worrying about like, you know, the fucking any like just everything crashing around us? Like it's kind of wild to like think about, because it's like fuck, like if experts aren't really sure what that looks like, that gives me even more like anxiety about it, because then I'm like, wait, if like this is your field and you don't know what the fuck we're talking like could happen, like fuck dude, like I said, I'm not really talking a lot because I'm just trying to like get some kind of understanding. We have one more video and then we'll touch on the politics of this, but like you know, and that's gonna be from a completely different angle, but you know, trying to get like a 360-degree view of this, but still, like Jesus,
to lose money in this case, but that doesn't make the general concept okay.
I'm gonna wait and see how it plays out in this case. What I've seen from the Federal Reserve so far, especially following the 2008 economic collapse, has been so incredibly damaging to the economy, has led to an explosion of inequality in our country, and I just don't trust Jerome Powell. I don't. I mean, he has made awful decisions that have honestly provided all sorts of favors to his buddies. And at the same time, I mean, he's done nothing to really help the American people. Well, he, by the way, simultaneously and transparently says that he's increasing interest rates to increase unemployment.
Yeah, so look, I think it's complicated. And I think that whether it's Jerome Powell or anyone else, they're just gonna do whatever the big banks.
Yeah, and keep in mind, like, meanwhile, all this shit is going on, like, the Fed is trying to induce, you know, a fucking, you know, they're trying to induce higher unemployment numbers. So, like, yeah, that's not
the big
very
banks on the board, right? So is everybody happy about them raising interest rates? No, a lot of business interests don't want them to raise interest rates, so he's going against business interests a little bit, so that's why it's complicated, right? But he could be cooling the economy too much, and he knows that it's gonna create unemployment, and he's okay with it. And so when Trump was in office, he pressured the Federal Reserve, pump up the economy, pump it up, right? So lower interest rates, just go nuts. Well, now we're paying some of the problems of that, it's come due. And so now he's cooling it down, which means the economy will slow down. And that's gonna fall on Biden's lap, especially by 2024 election. So these are all-
We also have to think about, I briefly saw like a video, I think it was like Destiny, I think I saw like, it was like a short, or it's one of those fucking YouTube shorts. And it was Destiny talking about like the boom and bust cycle. And like, it was one of those things where like in the video he's like kind of talking up the positive qualities or the benefits of like the boom and bust cycle, which like to me I find to be it's certainly a perspective, but like if you ask me, I don't really think the system that we have in terms of like capitalism, like it's not like this boom and bust cycle. What we tend to see is like every time there's like some boom, there's always a rather small and it tends to be the same group of people who see the boom in the same group of people that see the bust. I seldom, it would take a decent amount of convincing for you to convince me that the average American benefits from the boom, but only some Americans, fall victim to the bust. If you ask me, what it seems like is a rather small segment of our society benefits from the boom, while a rather large plurality of our society has to be dealing with the bust end, which tells me it's not a system that works for the majority of people. It works for some people, a very certain type of person, but there's also that aspect of it. But yeah, it's just
complicated issues. But the bottom line in this particular case, and by the way, let me just say before the bottom line, some people are like, oh yeah, you guys have money at SVB. No, we don't. We don't.
And by the
I'm
way,
just telling you the reality.
No, we don't, right? But like, if we did, what did we do wrong? So our entire business should go under as a result of our piece of crap government. Okay, with the help of Democrats as well, deregulating the banking system. Like, if we had been invested in that bank, meaning deposited money into that bank, into an account, right, that paid the employees at this place, how did we do anything wrong? I don't get it.
Yeah, and in fact, our account is not, let's put it this way, not significant enough to earn interest. So it's not like anybody's shopping for a better rate. You're just trying to keep your money somewhere, and then all of a sudden they got out of business and you can't pay anyone. That's an epic.
This is why Ron Swanson was right. You invest in gold and bury it in your backyard. That is also kind of the argument that they make around the gold stuff, though.
Anyway,
I don't actually think that's a viable way to,
the right thing.
keep savings. But I mean,
anyway, it's a rare case in that situation. It was right to save the depositors, but guys, most importantly, do not lose sight of this. You lose those small and mid-sized banks, and the big banks are going to be a colossus we cannot deal with. They're going to have too much money and power. They're going to rule the whole economy, and that is a terrible outcome. So thank God we dodged that bullet in this case. Thanks for watching.
Okay. Yeah. Things are happening. I want to take a look at two kind of different. So obviously, Young Turks, progressive YouTube channel, totally fine. I want to kind of look at the right-wing perspective on this, because I've been hearing a kind of mix of things. So we're gonna take a look at Tucker Carlson, I guess, covering this story, and then we'll take a look at Tim Pool from earlier today.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. The war ongoing in Ukraine, whatever your view of it, is completely reshuffling the world order and America's place in it. And it dawned on us last week, it's not clear where some of the people running for the Republican nomination stand on that war. So we sent a questionnaire to everyone running, and amazingly, almost all of them responded.
Why is the name of this video, "This is why our big banks are incompetent"? Okay, whatever.
At length, and the picture that emerges of where the Republican candidates running for president stand in Ukraine is a little bit shocking. It's not at all what we expected, and it's not at all what Republicans on Capitol Hill are saying. More evidence that there's a disconnect between Republicans in Washington and everyone.
Man, they are like really trying to push the.
It has been 15 years since the global financial.
Okay, there we go.
A long time, but it hasn't gone away. Its consequences, in fact, still define our world. Why is the U.S. government so deeply in debt? How did Wall Street get so much money? What did they do exactly?
Okay, oh no. So there's a reason why I wanted to watch this, and it's mainly because I'm curious what boomers are hearing. The United States being in debt. Yeah, because debt is kind of how a lot of governments end up paying for things, especially in the global economy that we live in right these days. Like, there's a certain amount of like you would call it like safe debt, right? Because obviously the United States, like it can't be producing, it can't be producing more than like it can actually produce as like a country, obviously. So like the idea that we have outstanding debt as a country isn't actually like that huge of a deal, considering we're also the global we're the global currency. That also gives us a deep advantage in terms of like, you know, having all of this outstanding debt. But you know, I feel like this is gonna be one of those things where they're gonna obscure Wall Street's role in a lot of this, because keep in mind, whatever, you know, Wall Street, like the US government being in debt is basically a guarantee that you're going to get paid. So like, you know, when the United States owes $5 billion, you're guaranteed to get that $5 billion. That is like a secure line of income from, you know, another country or entity or whatever it might be. Whereas, you know, if you're getting that $5 billion from, you know, I don't know, fucking, you know, Big Dicks Corporation or whatever the fuck, like there, you know, if that corporation goes under, if whatever, you know, if they go under, you ain't getting paid. So keep in mind, there's also like, you know, debt for our country is not really the same as a private institution. We can, you know, we control a lot of kind of, and also our economies are so like entangled with many other countries that the idea that anybody would ever call that debt would end up causing like a tsunami of negative consequences, not just for the people who call on that debt, but like, you know, multiple countries around them and all over the world. So like it wouldn't benefit anybody for, you know, anybody to call us on any debt. It would just be foolish.
Housing prices so high? Why do our leaders stoke racial conflict? Why have so many Americans concluded that their system is rigged?
Okay. I love how one of those had nothing to do with the other, but okay.
In every case, the answers to those questions is the same. It all began in 2008. Now, 2008 and its aftermath is a complex story, but let's just sum up in the broadest possible terms.
Oh, no. Okay.
Big financial institutions took foolish risks and nearly blew up the entire U.S. economy.
Yep.
We knew right away what had happened and who did it, but nobody was ever punished. The reckless bankers responsible got off. So did the politicians who encouraged the reckless bankers to be reckless. Nobody went to jail. Nobody was even banished from the industry. In fact, some of the wrongdoers even got their bonuses that year. So we had economic collapse, but it didn't hurt them at all. Why? Well, simple. The government bailed out the banks. That was controversial, but bipartisan. And at the time, they told us in bipartisan fashion that they were saving capitalism.
Right.
But they weren't. In fact, they were inverting capitalism. What happened next is very simple. Wall Street.
Okay, so he is right in the sense that it's not that they were inverting capitalism, is that they were instituting a socialist framework as a reaction to the big banks, you know, basically failing and going bust. Like this was the case where the U.S. government, you know, so the U.S. government in the 1990s, if I remember correctly, Bill Clinton, you know, what's the word? Bill Clinton repeals Glass-Steagall, which allows the banks to start betting on assets with depositor money. That's the big key when it comes to Glass-Steagall, because you see, whenever there'd be, if you have like a bank, right, before Glass-Steagall and during like the Depression and everything, you would have a bank, you put like, I don't know, you put $2,000 into that bank, right? That bank would not be allowed to touch that depositing money to then bet on stocks, bet on assets, bet on anything. That wouldn't be something that they're allowed to do. They wouldn't have access to your depositor money. What they would have access to is any investor money that comes into the bank. That would be the money that they use to generate those funds. And because of the repeal of Glass-Steagall, it became possible for them to then play around with the depositor money. And when they ended up doing that, they ended up putting a lot of money into junk bonds, junk packages of of stocks, of debt that they were betting on. And when eventually too many factors in the economy bore down on Joe Schmo who's paying his mortgage, eventually that cracked with a large enough percentage, which actually wasn't a large percentage, it was a rather minuscule percentage of people not being able to pay their mortgage, and along with other economic factors, their basically the bottom fell out from under the housing market. Because of that, obviously interest rates, skyrocketed. You saw money become like super scarce at these banks. People, again, also pulled their money out as best they could, but eventually the banks couldn't even hold on to, it couldn't pay people any of their depositor money. By that point, they had lost most of it. Obama comes in 08, and, at the end of the day, they either let these banks fall, all of these people who've deposited money, and keep in mind, these aren't like small banks. These are Bank of America. These are JP Morgan Chase. These are large banks that like millions of people use on the regular. You would let these fall under, and suddenly, if you're just a normal person, your $2,000 you can't even get a hold of. You can't deposit, you can't withdraw, you can't do anything. You're just stuck. They don't have the money to give you. So obviously, the Obama administration and Democrats and Republicans, they bailed out the banks. They gave them the liquidity at an incredibly low interest rate, allowing them to then pay off all the people they needed to pay. Which also, by the way, a lot of that money did go to bonuses, did go to paying executives their golden parachutes as they exited the industry because they had just crashed it and they were bailing out, basically. But yeah, so like, yeah, that is just wanna, yeah. So like, but when we talk about like, he is right in that it was a bipartisan consensus, because keep in mind, a lot of banks, a lot of financial institutions end up sending a lot of politicians quite a bit of money. When you hold the amount of money, that these banks hold, naturally you're gonna want to have an equal say, in your mind, an equal say, but an equal say in the way that our society is kind of constructed. So, that's why they have so many politicians to
socialize its risks.
Yes.
That meant if things went well, the finance people got
a
rich.
Classic leftist critique.
But if things went south, the government, would swoop in to save them. Pretty good deal.
Yep.
But for more than a decade, very few complained about this arrangement because things went very, very well. Wall Street boomed. And the root of Wall Street's success, no matter what they tell you, was low interest rates. Not new innovation, low interest rates.
Right.
Low interest rates make a bull market inevitable. So in a normal, non-distorted capitalist economy, companies become more valuable when they produce more goods and services that people want to buy. But in an economy controlled by monetary policy run by the Federal Reserve, companies become valuable when interest rates decline.
And keep in mind also, like, another aspect to this is also the evaluation process. So like the value of any company isn't really based on their their output, isn't based on their quality of product. A lot of it is based on the worth in terms of like an investment to that company. You see a lot of like it's why you see a lot of these larger corporations, why they have stock buybacks as a program, and they pay a lot of their executives through those stock buybacks, because basically you can there's only so much of a product you can sell, right? Any executive is going to work at company X and make $1 million, $5 million salary, right? But the other way that you pay people is by they rebuy their own stock, therefore, limiting the amount of stock able to be purchased, meaning you're increasing scarcity on that stock, which is going to drive up the value. It means the more of your own stock you're buying, the more it becomes valuable, but only to you. It has nothing to do with the company, has nothing to do with workers, has nothing to do with anything. It only has everything to do with the evaluation that's given in terms of like, oh, what's the stock worth? Oh, it's, this or that company is worth X billions of dollars because a bunch of guys who own the stock and hold on to it have deemed that that's what all of the stock equals eventually at some point. Now, usually those are determined by rating agencies or kind of it's by I don't even know if rating agencies would be the correct term for that one. But like, the evaluation process, or like that's where people like, kind of get the idea of like, oh, the stock went up today. Why did it go up? No real rhyme or reason. There's, nothing really happened. It's just some people bought a little bit of this or that stock and people went, oh, that guy's buying it. It must be worth something. So I'll buy it. And then they buy it. It's all this like blind gambling. And like modern monetary theory and everything is super complex. I'm not an economist. I don't I'm already stretching the limits of my brain. But yeah, like, I mean, this is what happens when your economy becomes, less of a reflection of your, goods produced, stuff like that, and turns into speculative investment value, basically. And do I really need to say the like obvious point of, he has the picture of Joe Biden and Janet Yellen. They're nowhere near, like, since 2008, this has been Trump's policy. This was Bush's policy before him. This was Obama's. This has been everybody's. This is not a Democrat Republican problem. This is a Washington problem more than anything else.
So for 13 years, interest rates remain near zero. In retrospect, now that it's ended, this was crazy behavior. These were emergency measures declared by the Federal Reserve after 2008, but they never ended. And because they never ended for 13 years, the American economy was distorted beyond recognition in ways too numerous to count. Venture capital and private equity exploded. So did cryptocurrency. So did asset prices, particularly real estate. There was an ocean of money flooding.
Yeah, we also turned fucking housing into assets.
Half the tax rate.
People buy houses now. We've already heard of like BlackRock and other like private equity firms that will just buy up neighborhoods of houses and then sit on them and wait until scarcity raises the price of homes to then eventually sell them off or turn them into rentals where they can, like, somebody can live in a house, but they don't ever actually own it. That person never gets the equity. The company keeps that equity in that home. Meanwhile, the price of the home keeps going up and up and up and up. But eventually, it'll go up too high. People won't be able to buy them. And, eventually they won't have anybody to sell, in which case the price will end up plummeting. There's also that.
Benefited most. They started buying third houses and flying private. But there was also a problem that you didn't hear a lot about with low interest rates. If interest rates are at zero, how do you get meaningful returns on your money? This was a problem that virtually every investor faced for more than a decade, very much including the banks. At some point, investors became tempted to make very risky bets. If they wanted to produce returns, they had to. As they say on Wall Street, Tina, there is no option. One of the risky bets that banks made was loading up on long-term treasury bonds from the U.S. government.
Tina? Wouldn't it be Tino? Okay.
As a surrogate for cash, though, of course, bonds are not cash. They're different from cash, as we're now learning. But that worked fine as long as interest rates remained low. But once interest rates rose as a response to inflation, as obviously they were always going to do, nothing lasts forever, including zero interest rates. Once that happened, those bonds were worth less than the banks had paid for them. And so
so essentially you're like, the idea would be like, it's going to cost you, to use like stupid terms, it's going to cost you 50 cents to get this dollar. But obviously you need the dollar now, and the 50 cents you're going to pay on top of that dollar is going to be down the road when you're making a lot more money. And it's like, but once, or I guess the opposite, I'm sorry. It'll cost you 50 cents to buy that dollar. But if it gets to a point where it'll cost you $1.50 to get that dollar, now when you sell it, you're selling it at a loss. But yeah, God, I hate this shit. I fucking hate this.
You're also seeing, revealed for everyone to see, the other effect of 13 years of artificial Fed-driven prosperity. That is, a lot of silly, frivolous people in charge. They're like inherited money people. They think they earned it.
Man, people inherited money who think they earned it. Man, Fox News is so funny, dude. They have literally a guy go out there who is an heir to like the Swanson food, like frozen food empire, go out there and be like, those rich aristocrats who were born rich who think they earned it. It's like, dude, that's you. That isn't even that isn't even like kind of you. That is you, like 100%.
But they didn't. Because when money is free from the Fed, you don't have to be a serious person to get rich. You can do whatever you want because there's no consequence. You can put BLM logos on your website. You can spend investor funds on female empowerment ski weekends in Tahoe.
Fun fact, none of this led to the bank failing. So this is what I kind of expected, is like this, like, when he mentions, because if you notice, like, a lot of his commentary is like mildly accurate, obviously framed against Democrats, He'll say it's a bipartisan thing, but he won't use Republicans in his graphics because, you don't want to drive that point home. You only want to like kind of speak to it. You want to mention it so that you can say, no, I said this is bipartisan, and then spend the rest of the time making it exclusively, or at the very least communicating it visually, that it's a Democrat problem. But also like, putting a BLM thing on your website has no fucking bearing on your investment acumen or like any of the stuff that caused the problems that we're looking at right now. None of these things aren't related.
Oh, when interest rates are zero, you can do anything because making money is easy. Everybody's a genius. Anyone can do it. And unfortunately, a lot of very stupid people did do it. On Friday, as you know, Silicon Valley Bank, SVB, failed. That became the second largest bank failure in American history. Then on Sunday, authorities took over Signature Bank in New York. That became the third largest bank failure in American history. Then today, shortly after the markets opened, trading in several regional banks had to be halted. Western Alliance was down almost 80%. First Republic, which of course Jim Cramer endorsed just a few days ago on CNBC, that was down nearly 70%. Jim Cramer's always welcome to come on this show for amusement purposes. PacWest down 50%, Comerica down 40%, and so on.
Yeah, keep in mind, so these are all like regional banks. So all the regional ones, the reason why they're down 80% is because a lot of people are basically rushing to withdraw as much of their money as they can, because of the like, because of the obvious like, oh shit, the like with what happened with SVB, is my money secure in kind of this smaller bank? And as people start to withdraw all of their money and try to move up, now granted, keep in mind, like, we say people, we're not even just talking about regular Americans. Regular people generally might not even know this is happening. They might not even know that like their bank that they go to is regional. Like, there's a ton of people who they're like, wait, my bank is regional? You don't have First Bank over on the East Coast or something? And it's like, yeah, like it's a regional bank, like same with a few others. But like what we're talking about is like the people who are pulling their money out and pulling a lot of resources out of these banks are going to be like your maybe like your startups or even your mid-sized corporations, but anybody who's basically not doing business with the large banks like Bank of America and Chase and all the rest of them. So like, as companies, as large institutions, or at the very least medium, even medium-ish institutions are like, shit, we have all of our, we do all of our banking in at a regional bank. Maybe we need to move up to a national one to kind of protect our, money. And as they do that, if enough of them do that, obviously any of these small banks aren't going to have money on hand after they're done. Like, oh, you want to take your $4 million? Here's your $4 million. Oh, you want to take your $6 million? Oh, here's your 6. You want to take your 11 million? Oh, here's your 11. Next thing you know, you're like, there ain't shit in the safe anymore. People have given us our money, but either all of it has been bought with bonds, which now we're losing money on, meaning we will, even if we sell all of it, we don't have enough to give back to anybody else wanting to withdraw. And like we literally don't have anything in the safe anymore. The safe is empty. Like five very large, depositors pulled their money out. We have nothing now. We don't have anything. We sold all the stuff that we were investing in at a loss to pay them. Now we don't have anything to pay the rest of you. And, essentially all, so that's why people are like panicking and like, okay, maybe I need to move up. TYT did a good job of also summarizing that, but like, keep that in mind. Like, these are all the like regional banks.
So there was panic, of course, reflected in markets, and it wasn't just regional banks that were affected. For a while this morning, you could not even trade stock in Charles Schwab, venerable Charles Schwab. Schwab went down 25%.
Charles Schwab?
That's bad.
Charles Schwab?
Fact, that kind of panic could quickly, conceivably become
Charles Schwab?
So
it's a fun thing to say.
You need one thing, strong, competent leadership. But we don't have that. We have Joe Biden. Today he shuffled out to the podium and announced a bailout.
I want to briefly speak about what's happening in Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. Today, thanks to the quick action of my administration over the past few days, Americans can have confidence that the banking system is safe. Your deposits will be there when you need them. Small businesses across the country, the deposit accounts at these banks can breathe easier knowing they'll be able to pay their workers and pay their bills.
All right. So the money the Biden administration is using for this bailout apparently is coming from the FDIC. So the feds have it covered. Don't worry about the details. Everything's totally fine. Hold on. Slow down, pal. How did this happen? Can we get an explanation for that? Don't we have regulators? And how did those regulators?
Don't we have regulators? You would, Tucker Carlson, you would think, this is my problem also with Republicans. Something like this happens and they're suddenly like, where are the regulators? Where's the cops on the beat? And it's like, and I can't help but constantly be like, you all constantly push for the deregulation of basically everything, which includes the financial industry. So yeah, if you're wondering where the fucking regulators are, they're probably in the fucking unemployment line that you guys constantly advocate for them to be in. Like, yeah, like we've massively deregulated our banking industry. What's new? Again, keep in mind, he's going to forget the part where, like, Trump participated and did not, what's the word? He didn't re-implement any of these regulations. This is, again, like naturally Biden's going to take the flak for this. He is the president of the United States. My head fucking itches. But he's the president of the United States. He's going to take the flak for this, which is inevitable. The issue I always have with Fox News, which, I mean, let's be honest, Fox News isn't news. It's right-wing propaganda dressed up as news. But the issue I have is they're not being honest when they pretend that this is only a Biden administration problem. This is a systemic problem. This is an issue, a problem with the system of not just our politics, but also our financial institutions. Matt?
Since we're pretty confident they exist, aren't taking big salaries, how did they miss the fact that SVB was insolvent apparently for months, and not in some complex credit default swap way? You're going to spend 5,000 words trying to understand, but in a really simple way that's easy to understand. Their liabilities were bigger than their assets. Very simple. How did nobody notice that? The people who were paid to notice it. Well, Joe Biden unfortunately answered none of those questions.
Well, if we're talking, first of all, the FDIC seized SVB Bank. They did, as regulators, they did come in and be like, nope, that's it. You guys fucked. No more. But yeah, that's not really like, again, the system isn't set up to catch this stuff early. The system is set up in a way for them to be able to continue to function for quite a long time with this much risk.
He just came for the door.
Thank you. God bless you, and may God protect our troops. See you in California.
Mr. President, what do you know right now about why this happened? And can you
What's
assure Americans that there won't be a ripple effect?
Do you expect all the banks to fail, Mr. President?
Should all depositors be protected at all banks? All right, thank you, everybody.
Oh yeah, keep in mind, Young Turks mentioned this. Only depositors are getting, are going to be given a safety on this one.
Okay. Do we know why this happened? He's trying to figure out how to work the doorknob. What we know is the Biden administration is backstopping these deposits. Okay. But that's not the end of the story. In some ways, it's the beginning. So here's the part where you
aren't they backstopping depositors? Depositors are fine.
What are they going to get in return? Oh, something for sure. Remember that after 2008, the Obama administration, Eric Holder, swooped in and imposed DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion standards on the entire financial sector. And that's one of the main reasons our big banks are now increasingly incompetent, and also one of the reasons Americans are so divided by race.
Wait a second. Are you telling me that Tucker Swanson Carlson came onto his show on Fox News, fucking distributed to millions of Americans, came on here and went, the reason Obama bailed out the banks is so that he could implement diversity, equity, and inclusion? Is that really the... Does that sound insane to anybody else? Like, think about this. Honest to God. Like, I'll play that again. Honest to God. Think about this.
Standards on the entire doing this. What are they going to get in return? Something for sure. Remember that after 2008, the Obama administration, Eric Holder, swooped in and imposed DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion standards on the entire financial sector. And that's one.
So yeah, that's what he's arguing. He's literally arguing that, like, They were like, oh shit, we had this huge financial crisis in '08 that like almost collapsed the entire economy. Well, now, Wall Street, we'll bail you guys out, but this is what we want in return. This is what we want. We want you to put more diverse people in your industry, which also, by the way, is what's killing the industry, because more diverse people equals bad in Tucker Carlson's world. Keep that in mind. The bad thing is that Wall Street is more diverse. That's the bad thing. Like, you let black people in? No. Oh man, this whole thing just got all kinds of messed up. We let the blackies in. Like, that's what he's saying. There's no real playing around the edges on that one. That's what he's saying. He's saying black people do actively make the financial institution worse, right? Or more specifically, just non-white folk, right? But like, on top of that, think how ridiculous that is from like a premise. Like, the idea that you're like, oh yeah, the Obama administration, that's why they bailed them out. When the obvious answer, the most obvious thing that Tucker Carlson won't say, by the way, he's not going to say this part, which is, no, idiot. The goal was not, we're going to backstop and bail out the banks so that they can add diversity and inclusion into their industry. That's not what they did that for. They fucking bailed the banks out because fucking, like, how many of them have ties to fucking financial institutions? How many people in the regulatory body of the federal government are from the banks? Like, Steve Mnuchin is like a fucking venture guy or whatever. He comes from like the banking industry. The people who run the financial regulatory bodies are themselves actors from within the financial institutions. Like, the betrayal is coming from within the house. Like, they're part of the system. They've bought enough politicians and enough leeway to be into the government, to be in the regulator's office, so that they can just not regulate themselves. And when these people leave, they go right back into the banks and pick up hefty paychecks as consultants. Do they actually do anything? Probably not. They probably don't do fuck all. Maybe they go to a meeting or a hearing every once in a while. Not even meeting, like I say meeting and hearing. What I'm actually thinking is like a convention. They might go to like a convention or something. Might, do a speech here or there at some school. But like, that's it. Like, the banks send them money to win their races. Or the banks, like, actively give them positions in their private institutions. They then leave. They go and work for the government. They don't regulate properly. And, when they come out, they immediately get jobs in the private sector and then get paid a fuck ton of extra money. Like, it's rather obvious. It's a corrupt political system. But Tucker won't say that, will he? He's not going to say he's not going to say it's corruption. He's going to say, it's equity, it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like anybody on Wall Street fucking cares about any of that. And like any of that has any bearing at all whatsoever on the risky bets that these institutions are taking. They're taking the risky bets because they know they're going to make money. They know the government's going to bail them out because guess what? The government's in their pocket. It's kind of, they already have the ear of government officials, of government regulators.
One of the main reasons our big banks are now increasingly incompetent, and also one of the reasons Americans are so divided by race. Ideologues use the 2008 bank bailout to kill American meritocracy. That's a big step, mostly unacknowledged, but we're living with its consequences. So
yes, the meritocracy never existed.
This time
didn't exist between 08 and 2023.
Big banks eating little banks, and that means less competition. More consolidation means more government control. So what are they going to do?
Wait, isn't that why they're bailing? Isn't that why they're backstopping them to a degree? Is so that so the big banks don't just scoop them up? Isn't that kind of?
Well, all things being equal, if people don't start making a lot of noise and exerting an awful lot of pressure, it'll mean digital currency, a currency that politicians control. Sign up for the CBDC app to get your food stamps. You think that's not coming? Of course it's coming. They'd like it to come in any case. Now, we're not alleging a conspiracy here, but we did notice that the four biggest banks, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, JP Morgan, and Chase, are doing well. And we also noticed the White House appears to be, maybe we're just reading into this too much, trying to induce runs on regional banks. They seem to be trying to take away your confidence in those banks. Here's Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House secretary, not someone we'd ever accuse of having an original thought, but she's a vessel for the plans of others. Here she is on Friday. As SVB
I mean, she is a spokesperson.
She doesn't say a word about the fundamentals of the market or the security of your money in banks. Instead, she talks about the one thing that matters to her, which is the racial identity of the people in charge of our finance system. Watch.
I do want to take a moment to note the historic nature of the moment that you see in front of you right now. All three of us are historic first in our roles. The first Black woman to serve as CEA chair, OMB director, White House press secretary. The first Black women right in front of you for all of those three important key roles in the administration.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. Was that today? I don't care. I don't really care.
All self-awareness, as if anyone would care.
What's new? Liberals are out of touch.
And by the way, you are discrediting by your stupidity and clear incompetence anything you're promoting. You should keep that in mind. But big picture, if you wanted to make people less confident in regional banks and the banking system more broadly, if you wanted to maybe induce a run on the banks, this might be how you talk. Oh, we're all of a certain racial group. Huh? What does it have to?
Yeah, no, the stock price or literally nothing, that didn't impact anything. That did not affect anything whatsoever.
To do with whether the banks have enough cash in reserve to cover.
Like, I would love a one-to-one line between these things.
So what we do know is that the Democratic Party, the Biden administration, sees this crisis as a means of expanding their control. And we know this because in a recent Zoom call with the Fed, Treasury Department, and other financial regulators, with members of Congress, Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona asked whether there was a program in place to censor social media posts that could lead to a national run on banks. Now that's according.
Wait, what? Okay.
To Congressman Thomas Massey. Michael Schellenberg has a great piece on this today. Massey was on the call. So think about this for a second. You've got a deposit at a regional bank that's holding tons, way more than you know, of long-term treasuries that are worth a lot less than they were when the bank bought them. That means that bank is at risk. That means your money's at risk. But Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona doesn't want you to know about that. Why wouldn't they want you to know that?
Wait, didn't they ask the question of
kind of interesting. That kind of censorship could actually crush people.
I'm sorry, go back. I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about.
Well, less confident in regional banks and the banking system more broadly, if you wanted to maybe induce a run on the banks, this might be how you talk. Oh, we're all of a certain racial group. Huh?
Yeah,
what does it have to do with whether the banks have enough cash in reserve to cover their balance sheets?
Nothing. That's the answer. It has nothing to do with anything. This is a made-up issue. This is the made-up talking point.
So what we do know is the Democratic Party, the Biden administration, sees this crisis as a means of expanding their control. And we know this because in a recent Zoom call with the Fed, Treasury Department, and other financial regulators, with members of Congress, Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona asked whether there was a program in place to censor social media posts that could lead to a national run on banks. Now, that's according to Congressman Thomas Massey. Michael Schellenberg has a great piece on this today. Massey was on the call. So think about this for a second. You've got...
Wait, Tucker. What was the answer to that? Like, you can't... Wait, what was the answer to that, though? I didn't hear an answer. It was... They asked a question.
A deposit at a regional bank that's holding tons, way more than you know, of long-term treasuries that are worth a lot less than they were when the bank bought them. That means that bank is at risk. That means your money's at risk.
I think keeping my social media is consistently used to affect the market.
Kind of interesting. That kind of censorship could actually crush people. So we have to ask...
But the question was if they're... Okay.
The obvious question, how close are we to some sort of disaster? And
okay, well, yeah, as you can kind of see, you know, Waters coming in here with the usual take. Is Biden bailing out Wall Street? No, because first of all, this isn't happening on Wall Street. But just in generally, we kind of like, you know, went over this. Like the what they're backstopping is depositors, which makes sense. You know, that those are the actual people who you would want to backstop, not anyway. Okay, this is the last thing on the bank thing, and then we're fleeing. I don't even think we're gonna go over the fucking Arkansas thing. We might do that tomorrow, just because my brain hurts. But okay, so we all know Tim Pool. Let's just kind of hear.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that wokeness has literally destroyed the economy and may take down the world with it. We have the story from the Daily Mail, an outstanding ESG rating, but no chief risk operator. Silicon Valley Bank hired woke board, obsessed with diversity, invested $5 billion for healthier planet, and held month.
I love how, like, Tim Pool has such a, like, boomer brain that, like, you can tell that he's getting worked up just reading the headline. Like you can always kind of tell. You should always be weary of people who get like really, really caught up in the headline, especially when the headline is like this long and also like is clearly steered to like immediately give you like it's just like, here is your opinion. Like that's what this is for. But
long Pride celebration, but failed to spot glaring problems with investments. Yep.
Yeah, and the question becomes, as I'm going to probably ask a lot of times, what does that have to do with anything? When we say like the idea that they're like, oh, they held a month-long Pride celebration. Oh, they must have been like out in the streets for the entire month. They did no work that entire month. No, let's be honest here. It was most of these are regular office settings. They probably had like a board and like they put up some decorations and had like some game in the office or something, like rather mundane stuff. But like you know, are we gonna hear what that means? No, because the only thing Tim Pool and whoever wrote this article wants to do, the only thing they're interested in is, you know, is they say, oh, Pride Month. They had a month-long Pride Month, which Pride's always a month, but they didn't notice this other thing. And it's like, well, what, the one doesn't distract from the other? Like, obviously. Thanks, Alexander. Appreciate that subscription. But yeah, how are these two things related? And the answer is going to be, this entire video is they're not. None of these things are going to be related. But
can't say that anybody's surprised. I went over this a bit in the previous segment.
Oh god, they have a brown
now
person.
We have a story basically breaking down how wokeness destroyed the global economy, and
yes,
maybe it's a good thing.
Yes, the global economy is destroyed now. Didn't you hear?
You know, I'm sure we over at Timcast can write the article. Wokeness has destroyed the economy. Here's why that's a good thing. Well, look, it sucks the economy may get destroyed by this. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I do know that they're coming out and saying it's a good thing that Joe Biden finally woke up at 9 a.m. Check out this clip. Nope, sorry, I gotta make sure I fix the audio, because I always have the audio switched so I can listen to music.
Now, it's important to note, President Biden does nothing at 9 a.m. He is a night owl. So the fact that he is doing this at 9 a.m. anyway speaks to how vital.
Well, yeah, we all know he's a night owl. He's playing Destiny 2 with fucking Barack and Donald, obviously, or they're playing zombies. We all know this.
The White House recognized it.
We all know that they stay up playing COD Zombies.
To the American public.
Okay, let's put it simply. Joe Biden never gets up at 9 a.m. and decided to today because there's a run in the banks, they may be collapsing, stocks are tanking, and the bond market is predicting the system.
Man, imagine if this is the only place that you got your information. Like, nothing he said is actually true, only really like 40% of it is, and even then it's a gross mischaracterization of what is happening right now.
Is imploding right now. I certainly hope none of that's true. There are a lot of people in media who are
wait. Okay. Moving on.
Believe the end is nigh.
Okay.
Because it's shocking and it makes money. There are a lot of people in media who are going to tell you everything is fine. Everything's fine. Just go out and go shopping and don't worry about it. Because they don't want you to panic, which could screw with their money. I honestly don't know which way it could go. And there's a million and one arguments. I can only tell you that it's happening. Now, the fact that Joe Biden got up super early in the morning to talk about this says to me that it really is shocking. And the media is probably going to lie to you about how important this moment is. I don't want to be... See, I know a lot of people watch these videos, and I don't want to go out and be like, the end is nigh,
I do watch
and then
these
cause a panic.
videos.
But I'm going to be honest with you, I am not particularly confident in this. And anybody who has ever watched any of my videos pertaining to the economy and where we're heading, they're going to be like, oh yeah, Tim Pool, once again, he's got a negative view of what's happening.
Interesting. Didn't Tim Pool like get started in the Occupy like movement? Like during like Occupy? Just let's read this really quickly because I don't know if he's gonna read this. Well, better read this fucking article.
It's one of the reasons I bought crypto.
Can you read the article instead of
let's talk about how wokeness specifically may have destroyed the global economy. The reason I said before that it's a good thing is because this could actually destroy wokeness. When all these companies collapse, it's the woke ones that go first, and the meritocratic institutions will probably get hurt pretty bad. But in the long run, probably survive.
I love the idea that you can't be woke and have merit It's always like this weird thing where they talk about merit as like this objective like evaluation of your value as a company, as a business, as a producer of any kind of product, but then they like immediately like walk that back and go like, well, look, if you're woke, then your merit isn't really your merit doesn't really exist. You're woke. You're either woke or you're meritocratic. Even though, again, it's just the obvious thing where like woke doesn't really mean anything. But like, yeah, love that contradiction.
ESG, environmental social governance. You cannot run businesses on good feelings and positive vibes. It doesn't work, and eventually they'll implode. So here we are. The Daily Mail says, executives at Silicon Valley Bank focused on woke initiatives to increase diversity amongst its ranks and invest in startups promoting a healthier planet, but failed to spot its glaring problems with investments as interest rates rose.
Right, which again, you would have to draw. I'm going to be a broken record here, but you're going to have to draw. You're going to have to tell me how these two things are connected, how one affects the other. Because if not, you're just stating two things that happened and just kind of assuming that these things are connected.
The now failed bank had an A rating for its ESG policies, according to MSCI. Run for the hills. I got to get a baseball bat and get a wide angle so I can get up and like smash bottles and be like, the ESG companies are not sound investments. If you have money in any company that has a high ESG rating, they are screaming in your face. They prioritize their religion over running their business. Now, hold on there a minute, my friends. I don't care if somebody is religious and runs a business. You just got to understand that if you have a burger chain and instead of selling burgers, you start preaching the Bible, people might stop coming for burgers. And don't get me wrong, I love me some Sweet Frog. You guys know about Sweet Frog? The frog.
I just want us to take a look really quickly of high ESG companies. Let's see. Exelon, PepsiCo, Cisco, Verizon, Nvidia, Apple, PayPal. Like, I'm not, what the, yeah, show me the top 5, you dumbass. God damn. Why would you only show me a few? I hate the internet. Oh my God. Fuck. Okay. My point is, like, getting an A rating for environmental, social policies, all of this stuff. This is all just an understanding so that companies know what they're investing in. Like at the end of the day, like their ESG rating is only really going to be like concerned with like some of its environmental effects, which, by the way, you might want to be aware of if you're an investor in any company, because you want to know, because knowing the environmental effects also allows you to like have the knowledge of like, oh, how much are we losing towards renewables or not using renewables? How much how much are we at risk if like this or that impact hits us? Are we in a place to recover from whatever it might be? But like, yeah, you want government like you want these things because companies operate in other countries and other regions of the world where they need to be aware of government regulations as well. In terms of also like the social stuff, it's like the end of the day, you want to, like, a lot of people are like, like as long as you have like good ratings in all the categories, if you're running your company in a good way and you happen to have a diverse workforce, cool, that's great too. But that's not even the social aspect is only a third of that rating, and even then it's probably one of the smaller ones. The biggest ones you're talking about is probably governments and the environment, because again, you need to know your impact, which means you also need to know that how to reinvest your money to recoup some of those costs. Point is, it's stupid to just write it off as like, if you have a good rating in something that's actually bad, like that's fucking stupid. Any of those companies are functioning perfectly fine.
Frozen yogurt shop, and FROG stands for fully rely on God. Here's the best part. I walk into Sweet Frog and they have on their wall, fully rely on God, frog. No joke, that's what it says. Not all locations show that, but some do. It ain't no bother to me. I walk over, fill up my yogurt, throw some cookie dough on it, and I'm good to go. You can preach, you can have your business, but just to make sure your business works. What's happening with these ESG companies, it's like you walk into a yogurt shop and you walk up to the yogurt pump, and instead, when you pull the lever down, it starts playing you a diversity training manual, and it's like,
this is fucking stupid. That's just Okay, we're just moving
Do you
on.
know why we have more women on our board? And you're like, where's the yogurt, man? People leave. They're not going to stick around.
Yeah.
This is
all
what's
the
happening with
times you
these
went to
companies.
go buy a
They
Pepsi
did not have a chief risk
or a
operator.
Mountain Dew.
So here's what
at the store, and instead it was just a little
SVB probably made a lot of sense.
a little empty bottle that was
As
like
the
we
cult
hire
started
women.
to drill its way into the brains of these human beings who are too
Oh my God.
psychotic and stupid
Tim,
to realize what was
take
happening.
it easy.
They start shifting the focus of the business into investing in companies that are full of a bunch of psychotic cult members. That's what institutional capture does. But guess what? Woke companies don't make money. You ever watch that episode of South Park where Cartman...
Please don't use South Park as a understanding of economics. Please don't tell me you're this fucking stupid, Tim. South Park is not a... Okay, we'll just...
wants to get rid of all the hippies. They arrest him, and they go to him, they're like, why are you... We're having a music festival, Cartman. Why are you trying to stop it? And he goes, because the hippies are bad, and they're going to cause problems. And they're like, they're going to bring a lot of money. And he goes, hippies don't have money. It was really funny because Cartman's kind of a bad dude. Then they drill their way through the crowd to the center of the hippie festival.
I remember this episode. This is really fucking... This is like early South Park. I guess not early, but like... This is like when I was watching South Park. I know the exact episode he's talking about.
The point is, woke, you go to there's going to be a woke guy, a woke lady, and they're going to be like, I want to do a company that's like all about diversity, and we sell crystal balls. And you're going to be like, wow, and how much money do you plan to make?
What if we had a company? What if we had a company that that like, you know, made movies for you know, for you know, kind of families, you know. We had a company that was made for families. They make movies, they make animation, you know. They really care about their what's it called, their you know, their diversity and their inclusion. And then, you know, I can't even. I was gonna make like a Disney joke, and I'm just kind of like, even Disney, they always say Disney's woke, and Disney's not woke. Almost nothing is actually woke, but you know. Anyway, we're just gonna move on. I just my brain's melted from all the other bank stuff.
Make from selling your crystal balls, and they go, well, I think after we spend about $100 million in marketing diversity initiatives, you know, people will really want to buy. What were we talking about again? SVB then says, here's money.
Imagine Tim Pool thinking like this is how companies work.
You know, an A-rated ESG company making investments. I would not be surprised if it turns out they were investing in crackpot cult members or cowards. Now, what happens if you ask a coward to lead a battalion in a battlefield? It ain't gonna work out, right? You need someone of sound mind and body.
What does this have to do with fucking banking, Tim? I shouldn't be still sitting here. Like, my brain is fucking melted from listening to real people talk about the issue and like actually talk about it in a substantive way. But meanwhile, I click over to the conservative voices, and Tucker Carlson will give you like 40% of like the information you need to understand the scenario, and 60% of it spend the rest of the time pretending that it's a Democrat problem. Like, and then I click over to fucking Tim Pool, and Tim Pool's like, oh, a woke company is a company that doesn't actually produce goods or services, even though there are thousands, possibly millions of companies owned by people who are themselves diverse or hire diverse workforces who make and produce fucking goods and services. This is not like how business works, Tim. This simply isn't. There isn't a business who doesn't sell anything but just spends money on marketing to get people to buy no goods because no goods exist. This isn't a thing. This doesn't exist because it can't exist. You can't have a company that doesn't sell anything. Everyone has to sell something, some kind of thing. The only people who don't oh my God, like this is so fucking stupid. This is what happens when you have fucking right-wing brain. When you just sit here and you go like, oh yeah, like right-wing, fucking woke companies, they don't actually produce anything. And it's like, what are you talking about? What is any of this? What is any of it? Can you explain any of this? But he's got to bring in like some fake company with a fake story, with a fake hypothesis, like all of it is synthetic. All of it, 100% of it. None of this means anything. Like, fuck, dude.
He's willing to be there, make tough decisions. So someone comes to you and says, I need $500,000 for my startup. And they go, okay, well, tell us about it. And the person there is going, I better not say anything that would offend them. I'm so scared that if I say the wrong words, then I won't get my loan. And so this person can't run a company. Or you get a cult member being like, my business is great. We're all about diversity. Here's your investment. And then what happens when it's like, come time to pay the bills? Well, we don't make money. We just preach diversity. Well, how is
that? Would call really breaking if you didn't do an evaluation or any kind of business plan on a business. Like, if a bank takes those bets. He does understand that people go into banks with half-assed ideas for businesses and don't get money, not because they're woke or not woke, but because they don't have good ideas for businesses. Like, why did I subject myself to this?
You're not. Welcome to the modern American era. They say for 8 months last year, they had no chief risk operator. Then when the Federal Reserve increased interest rates...
They had no chief risk operator. Maybe that was the reason. Maybe it had very little to do with the pride that they were celebrating and more to do with the fact that they didn't hire a person to assess their risk. Could that be a problem on management's part? That they did not think to hire a risk manager. Jesus fucking tap dancing Christ. You just solved it, Tim. You just solved it and you don't even know it. Like, holy shit.
The value of SVB's assets fell while customers tried to withdraw their money. Now, many are slamming the financial institution for focusing too much on woke policies and not...
Nobody's doing this. Let's be clear. Nobody is actually doing this. Only dumb fucks on, like, Fox News and dumb fucks who listen to Tim Pool are like, you guys were... SVB, you guys were way too woke. If you guys were less woke, maybe you'd not be broke. And it's not how it works. Jesus.
Enough on
my
its
brain.
It probably invested in trash, mind you. It said, and it's
it'd be great, Tim. If they were making public trades, you could just go look up what they were investing in. But like, didn't we already hear about this? That they didn't like diversify their portfolio enough. That they put way too much money into very specific sectors. Like,
2022 ESG report. The bank strives to create a more just, equitable, and sustainable world. Well. As an investor, I'm wondering if that's what I want for my investment, or do I want a functioning product that does well? And good.
He does realize that these two things aren't mutually exclusive. PepsiCo has also a good ESG rating, but they're nowhere near woke. God
I was gonna say
damn
does good,
it.
That's not proper grammar, but then actually it is in this circumstance. Look, man, I want a more just, equitable, and sustainable world. Well, maybe not equitable, equal opportunity.
That's what Okay.
But you come to me and you say, Tesla, electric cars, here's our plan to reduce carbon emissions. The energy generated for these vehicles, a portion of it comes from sources like geothermal, hydro, and wind and solar. A lot of it does come from fossil fuel, natural gas, but the carbon on natural gas is relatively low. It's neutral, I believe. And then for the renewables is neutral, but there will be some carbon. Plus, we've got to manufacture the vehicles. All in all, it reduces carbon. I say, okay, sounds good to me.
Crazy thought. You cannot destroy the environment, and you can also have diverse people and have a functioning business. I can't. This is so stupid. This is so fucking dumb. Like, this is literally like here. Like, again, this is more of like the you dared to hire non-white people. That's why you failed. That's like
they're good cars. That sounds like an investment to a product that makes sense. It's easier for you. Look, I got a Tesla. I don't got to go to the gas station. It's actually fairly great. So for all of my reasons...
You have a Tesla, you cuck? What the fuck? What the fuck is this? Fucking Tim has a Tesla and he's still going to talk shit about companies that care about their environmental impact? You dumb fuck. The whole, like, selling point to owning a Tesla is like, oh, hey, you don't use gas, which means you're actually helping the environment when you buy this car. And that's kind of like the whole thing. That's kind of the whole thing. Like, what the fuck?
Commuting, like even within like a couple hours driving, it's actually pretty awesome. And then sometimes we want to drive 3 hours to take the gas car. There's a good reason for it. But so I think that makes sense. What if you invested in a company that said, we're going to manufacture diversity widgets that go around? I'm like, well, to be honest, with all the cult members.
It's too bad there's not a diversity widget. It's too bad that diversity widget isn't a fucking thing.
This turns out to be a bunch of hubbub, and we pull through this with no problem. I'm not entirely convinced, considering Biden gets up at 9 in the morning and says everything's fine, everything's fine. Okay, assuming everything is fine, I would only advise anybody dump any. Okay, no, hold on. I will not advise anybody of anything. Sorry, have a nice day. I would ask a financial advisor. Do not take financial advice from me. You see how that works. I would ask a financial advisor if it makes sense to have investments in ESG companies. And I will tell you personally, none of this...
take your money out of PepsiCo, out of Cisco, out of NVIDIA, out of any of those companies. Totally.
Nothing in this video constitutes financial advice, and you've got no financial advice from me.
This is so stupid.
I don't even know.
This is so dumb. This is like when you learn like one thing, and that's the only thing you focus on.
Company. I don't have that much stock as it is, but I'm going to go through any company that has an ESG positive rating, I am going to pull money out of. And any
Tim, please do that live. Please fucking show me how many companies have high ESG ratings. You're gonna be shocked that a lot of them do, because everybody wants good fucking scores in as many like different things as they want. Every company wants to look its best, you fucking idiot. Like, oh my God, I can't. This is like, by all means, Tim, by all means, we're done. Get me the fuck out of here. I'm gonna go get water after this. My brain hurts. But like, yeah, like, idiot. Fucking companies with high ESG ratings are quite a few of them. And also, again, the success of a company and its ESG rating are not mutually exclusive. There are many companies who have high ESG ratings, who are very profitable and very safe investments. But again, like like Tim does this entire thing to make it into a woke culture war like nonsense. Like most of this video, most of looking over all of this shit, right? Most of looking over it, I haven't really said as much, and for the most part, I'm not like coming in with like, oh, Republican, Democrat, this or that or the other, right? Because like it's not really what it's about right now. Like, these are economic forces. These aren't like, and these are also bipartisan economic forces. But like, these guys come in and they don't have a version of talking about any topic without somehow making it about Democrat bad, woke bad, whatever it is. And it's just like, I'm fine with talking about that stuff. It's fun to get it. It's fun to get blood sports with all that shit. But like, this has nothing to do with the topic at hand. Nothing to do with it. And I'm fucking tired. Like, I'll be honest, that like my brain was already melted from watching the substantive videos about that. And I just feel like my brain was then jarred by like listening to Tim Pool, and then thrown like into a wall and then shattered. Like, holy shit. That was so fucking stupid. Like, okay. Anyway, we're going to go on a break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to do lighter topics that I don't have to do as much, like, I don't have to do as much background. I do not want to hear about more wonky shit today. I want sugar after this. So, yeah. What is the next topic? Ben Shapiro is bitching about the Oscars, and I just want something easy to comment on. But hi, Juki Alec, how are you? Oh my God. Ugh. Unless, like, yeah. I'll be back. I just need a break for a minute. All right. Fucking A. Okay. After receiving water and taking a piss, I'm now pissed. So Ben, get fucking ready. Get fucking ready to get owned, because now I'm in a bad mood. Okay, let me make sure we're at the right part. I don't care. Sorry, I have to go find the start of the video. Oh my god. When? Okay, here we go. Okay. Okay, thank God we're at it. All right, Ben, hit me with your best fucking Oscars take. See, okay, so let me be clear. The reason why I'm like, my brain, like the issue I'm having is, like, when we talk about economics and about like banking regulations, it's very, very complex. And like the way our system is like structured, super complex, super fucking confusing. My brain like melts trying to understand a lot of it, because it's honestly, at least in my conspiratorial mind, kind of designed to be confusing for the normal person, right? And like the thing that pisses me off is like people like Tim Pool, who don't know fuck all about any of this. Tim Pool knows probably as much as I do about banking regulation, about all the rest of the stuff that he just talked about, right? But like, unlike me, who comes on here and is like, okay, let's like watch some videos, try to get some kind of understanding what's happening, and like we'll take in some right-wing perspective on it just to kind of give some credence, like, you know, as I said earlier, 360-degree view. But no, what does this fucking idiot do? He comes on here and he's like, oh, like they were woke, so obviously they like didn't invest well, which is like, those two things aren't related. The first one doesn't even mean anything. But like, oh my god, like, and the whole like, oh, if you have an ESG rating, that means like you're like too woke of a company for me. Even though like, if you check like top ESG rated companies, they're high functioning companies. Like, these aren't like, we're talking like Nvidia, PepsiCo, Cisco. These aren't fucking like woke nonsense companies that don't sell products. But of course, like, it's disrespectful to the topic, because it's just like, it feels disrespectful to me that he comes at it from such a idiotic take, such an idiotic bought-in view. And then also, that's what he's pumping out to his audience. His audience is getting fed a steady diet of like woke bad, woke bad, woke bad, woke bad. Oh, the banks went down, it's because woke. Even though, like, even if you're talking about leftists, we ain't no banking type of people. Us leftists are not fans of the banking industry. So, but like, but either way, yeah, and I know Ben Shapiro did too. Ben Shapiro went on, like I think he spent the first 30 minutes of his hour-long show going over the bank stuff. Just clicking through it does the exact same thing. A lot of woke shit. I'm not even gonna bother with it. I'm not even gonna bother with it. These guys are fucking clowns. But what I will bother with, and now that I'm not in a great mood by getting annoyed by all of that, now we're gonna fucking tear into Ben for his shitty Oscars opinions, because I have no doubt, and I've already seen, I saw the little taster at the beginning. Ben was not too thrilled about Everything Everywhere All at Once winning Everything Everywhere All at Once. So let's go take a look at that. Let's have some fun. And I'm probably going to yell a lot more. But, you know, people like people yelling on the internet. That's like a thing people like. So, you know, tell your friends, tell your mom, do all the stuff. Anyway, let's go. Give it to me, Ben. Let's hear it. Let's hear the. Oh yeah, that's right. I have to slow Ben down. I can't have him at 1.25. He's incomprehensible at 1.25. All right, let's go.
Last night was the Oscars. I believe that it just ended like 5 minutes ago. As always, the Oscars is way too long. It was apparently quite.
Probably not. Have you not seen the ending, Jukiaholic? Or have you seen the movie, Jukiaholic? I don't think he's going to ruin the ending. Mainly because I don't think he understands the movie. Also, I do remember the ending, but it's not... I don't think knowing the ending really spoils everything that happens in that movie. A lot fucking happens. But, I don't think so. I would say probably not. Like, doubtful. Also, I don't... Like I said, it's a complicated movie. You need to see it. You'll understand by the time you finish it.
Quite boring. It did have some moments. So first of all, the overall
Oscars being
Oscar
boring,
analysis,
shocking.
diversity always wins. So you can bet these things. I mean, seriously, like, if you're going to bet the Oscars, always bet on the diversity film in order to win. This year, the diversity film was indeed.
That's on Netflix, isn't it? The All Quiet. Yeah, that's on Netflix. It really wasn't on my radar until I heard it was like nominated. I'll probably get around to it. Maybe. I don't know. I've never seen the original, so I don't know if I'm assuming like it's I'm pretty sure All Quiet's on the because wasn't the big thing that it was a Netflix movie? It's on it's like a Netflix production, I think. Let me double check just to make sure, so I'm not giving you the incorrect. In German, sometimes shortened as All Quiet. No, I want release, damn you. Film was released. Began. Launched on Netflix. Yeah, okay, cool. I've heard the original is like a classic. Yeah, it's on Netflix, but yeah, I've heard the original is a classic. That's what I've heard. I've never seen a lot of those classics. Like, I've never seen Casablanca, even though I probably should. Oh my god, this came out in 1930. Holy shit, this is old. Is anybody significant in this? Not really. Well, nobody I know. Owen, nope. Russell, nope. I don't know any of these people. Anyway. Looks black and white. Looks novel, sweeping the all quiet. Oh my god. Back on the front lines. Probably because non-white people, honestly.
Everything, everywhere, all at once, all the time, forever.
Whenever somebody says diversity, that's a tip off.
Going to win. Now, normally, what happens with the Oscars is that there's a film that sort of emerges as the early front runner, and then there's a backlash against the film. And
I'll try to keep the spoilers at a minimum.
You'll remember that happened the year that it was like 3 Billboards at Ebbing was in the lead, and then all of a sudden it just sort of fell away because everybody's like, it's a lot of white people in that movie. We can't do that. That thing sort of happens a lot.
What happened? Okay.
Well, the Oscar winner last night, the big Oscar winner.
Yeah, because 3 Billboards was like good, but like
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once,
3 Billboards won like
for
awards
the rest of time. That movie ended up
like
winning Best Actress.
Yeah, because 3 Billboards, I think, won Best Actress, if I remember correctly.
It ended up winning also, I believe, did it win Best Director? I think it won Best Director as well.
It like swept a lot of
Best Director.
I think got supporting.
It basically swept. Now,
got supporting male.
That it swept is
actress.
It fulfills 2 intersectional check boxes.
And which are those, Ben?
Intersectional checkbox, and we already had Parasite that won a couple of years ago, so we've done that. But
stop it. Okay. So this is what annoys the shit out of me. This is what annoys, and I remember this happening back when Parasite fucking won. I need somebody on the fucking right to tell me why Parasite did not deserve its fucking Oscar. Because I remember that fucking year. The options for that year were okay, but it was kind of obvious if you saw Parasite, what a just immediately superior film to like all the other stuff. I'm gonna look it up. Fuck this. I'm gonna look it up. Parasite's fucking amazing. Like, yeah, 2019. When the fuck? Okay, here we go. Second viewing. Yeah, it's like I still haven't actually seen it the second time. I've been kind of wanting to, but I'm kind of like, that was like, I always feel weird about watching things the second time when they're really good movies. I try to what's it called? Not overdo it too much. Where the fuck is its Oscar win? God damn it. Here we go. 92nd. Holy shit. Okay, here we go. Awards. This is what I want. Best Picture. Hit me with it. Okay, here we go. No, I know this. Winners and nominees. Here we go. Oh dear. Is this gonna? Oh dear. Stop it. 2020s, please. Oh wait, no. Wouldn't that been Parasite? Yeah, what was it? Ford v Ferrari, fucking spare me. The Irishman, fucking overly long. Jojo Rabbit, actually good, but I don't think was better than Parasite. Joker. Oh, wait, can you guys see this page? Oh no, you can't. Fuck. Where's the thing? Fuck. What is happening? Oh, why did that open a different page or a different window? That was weird. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember fucking Green Book won that one year, and Green Book's. Yeah, fucking okay. I remember Vice not being all that great. Stars Born was just okay. I heard Roma's actually pretty good. I don't remember anything about The fucking Favorite. Bohemian Rhapsody shouldn't have won, so I'm okay with that. Black Klansman I heard is really good, but I haven't seen it. Let's see. But yeah, 1917, good, but like, let's be honest. 1917 was the like, hey, the Academy, you like war movies, don't you? Here's that. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'll be honest, I didn't really like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood all that much. I love Tarantino movies generally. It's probably one of my least favorite Tarantino movies. I think that the performances are really good, but like as a movie, it was like super fucking long. Like the action, as with all Tarantino movies, is all consolidated to the end, and it was just kind of like good, but like at no point was I like, whoa, now this is like exceptional. Like there are a lot. I have like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's fine. But yeah, 4v Ferrari, Irishman, no. Jojo Rabbit's great. Joker, fuck no. Joker was never gonna win. I know that was everybody's like, oh, Joker should win. It's like, no, stop it. That movie wasn't about fucking anything. Marriage Story, God, the only thing I know about Marriage Story is the fucking memes, which are phenomenal, great, but yeah, like, which one is he talking about? Fucking, because wasn't Nomadland? Yeah, Nomadland won, even though I don't even fucking know. I didn't even see that. Yeah, like fucking 2020, like, I don't even think I've seen any of the options for 2020. Fuck, 2021, I don't even think. Like, 2021, I don't even think I saw much. Drive My Car, Don't Look Up, Belfast didn't see it, King Richard didn't see it. Licorice Pizza looked fucking pretentious. I fucking hated Nightmare Alley. Power of the Dog looked boring as shit. West Side Story, I don't know. I didn't really bother even looking into that. Yeah, because what was it this year? Elvis, Avatar, fuck Avatar. Banshees, I heard is really good, but like, eh. Elvis, I liked, but wasn't gonna win Best Picture. Fabelmans was also not gonna win Best Picture. Don't really look that great. Tear, I haven't seen it. Top Gun Maverick, please spare me. Triangle of Sadness, I've heard is funny, but it's not for everybody. Women Talking, it'd be cool if they gave it to that, but like Everything Everywhere All at Once is like such a fucking unique film. Like all of these movies fit into like a lot of these movies, at least to me, also always fit into like very similar categories. Like you have your Ford v Ferrari, which is like your like kind of boomer historical like drama. You know, you got that, and then like if you go to, is it The Father? Fuck, which one is it? Oh, yeah. And like the equivalent to that is going to be like Trial of Chicago 7 in 2020. Your equivalent to that is probably like King Richard for that one. You know, for this year, it's going to be like Women Talking. Like it always feels like it's the same like kinds of movies that always get fucking nominated. Whereas like fucking Everything Everywhere All at Once is a multiversal like fucking crazy ass like family drama basically, but it's also like an action movie and a sci-fi movie and a comedy and like all, it's so many things that like it balances it so well. And like everything else is like on here is good, I'm sure. Like for this year was good. I saw a okay amount of the movies, but like it's kind of obvious that like you have a truly unique movie in Everything Everywhere All at Once. But Don't Look Up. Don't Look Up was the problem with Don't Look Up is it knows it's like it's way too self-aware. Like the thing that made The Big Short like good is that it's like the right amount of self-aware, and it was actually like funny, and it felt like it had like really something to say. Whereas like Don't Look Up just kind of felt like they played too much into the premise a bit too much, and it was just kind of like pretentious to a degree. I didn't hate the movie, but it just felt like they were trying to say something rather than just saying something. But yeah, like I like JoJo. Let me be clear, I like JoJo. I would definitely put Parasite over it, but like I did really like JoJo. Also, when it comes to Best Picture this year, anyway, they didn't even nominate my favorite movie, which was Decision to Leave, also a Korean film. Fucking amazing. I have not stopped thinking about that movie, but like I won't be happy, but like it's fine. But anyway, okay, let's get back to Ben. Let's get back to Ben and his foolish arguments.
In that movie, we can't do that.
Oh, you can't do
thing
that.
sort
It's
of
not
happens
wrong.
a lot. Well, the Oscar winner last night, the big Oscar winner that took everything home,
What is
was
Coda?
Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, Forever for the rest of time.
It's funny, I never hear Ben complain about this fucking movie. Isn't that funny? I didn't even know this movie exists until I looked it up. And somehow Ben's like, "Oh yeah, you go with the diversity pick." Meanwhile, this movie, just going based off the poster, white lady, white dude, somehow, oh yeah, didn't even register for Ben.
That movie
Really
ended
nice
up winning
narrative
Best
them
Actress
for their
for Michelle
forehead.
Yeoh. It ended up winning Best Picture. It ended up winning also, I believe, did it win Best Director? I think it won Best Director as well.
Yeah, this has
It won Best Director.
Yeah, like okay. I know I'm being a prissy bitch right now, but like fucking Nomadland and Coda are like white people in America, the movie, and like sandwiched between Parasite and like Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I'm like, don't fucking complain to me about like, oh, is diversity too much when out of the last 4 Oscars, only 2 of them are non-white. Like, fucking spare me. And only one of them is a non-English film, a foreign film. The other one is a like immigrant story of Americans. And even then, before that, we have fucking Green Book that's about like fucking black people and white people getting along over like some fucking obnoxious ass like can't we all get along movie. Shape of Water, sci-fi movie. I don't really think there's as much. I guess technically the girl's like deaf. So there's your diversity pick. And then you got Moonlight and then like Spotlight. Spotlight, devoid of white people. Spotlight. Like fucking spare me. Like it's always like you look and you're like, oh yeah, this isn't actually. Then like it's Birdman, then 12 Years a Slave, and then Argo, then The Artist, King's Speech. Like, fuck out of here, Ben. Fucking diversity pick. We're looking at like a 50-50 at best, and it's like 50 white people. Like it's like 50% is owned by like majority white movie, like white casting movies, and then the other 50%, you get to divvy up to like non-white people. Yeah, totally Ben, got it.
It basically swept. Now, the reason that it swept is because
it's a good movie.
It fulfills 2 intersectional check boxes.
Being a good movie and being a better movie than everything else.
We've done that, but it's a very gay movie. Everything Everywhere All at Once is a very LGBT movie.
It's kind of.
It has the main storyline is essentially an Asian immigrant mom who is working really hard and ignoring her family, but she has to learn that her lesbian daughter's girlfriend should be introduced to grandpa, who has to be taught to accept the new ways of the world. The whole movie is about alternative universes and parallel universes. And
keep in mind, no, we're just
one of them, Michelle Yeoh herself, is a lesbian. Oddly, her daughter is a lesbian in all the universes, apparently. But Michelle Yeoh is a horrible movie. It's just kind of
you would cut out 40 minutes of this movie
in a lot of ways, and then finishes with sort of the mushy "can't we all get along" story. In any case,
it's a movie about family.
Political moment of the night. There were a couple of other political moments of the night. That was the big one. Was the Oscar-winning director Daniel Scheinert saying that I used to dress in drag as a kid, and no one's threatened by drag. No one, because I used to dress in drag as a kid. Spread your morality.
Who's threatened? Also, I know Ben isn't complaining about the spreading of more of other people's morality. Ben, all you do is complain that your morality isn't spread more. Please don't come for anybody when it comes to the morality policing. You don't get to make that critique. I get to make that critique. I don't care what people do. You really fucking do.
Hollywood, do it.
We want to dedicate this to the mommies, all the mommies of the world.
Whoa.
To our moms.
Oh yeah, the movie is like kind of a motherhood also.
Specifically, my mom and dad, Ken and Becky. Thank you for not squashing my creativity when I was making really disturbing horror films or really perverted comedy films or dressing in drag as a kid, which is a threat to nobody.
Whoa, crazy. Can you imagine? Yeah, Ben was really threatened when this person, Ben's probably around the same age. He just got like a weird feeling on the back of his neck when he was younger. He was just like, he's sitting there playing with his fucking Tonka truck and like, his fucking Bible man action figure. And then, he just felt the brushing up his neck. And he went, fuck. There's a child in another state in there dressing in women's clothing. My God. Mother, I need help. mother, like you were fine, Ben. You were fine. He did it, and the world didn't end. Like, holy shit.
So yeah, that's I mean, I'm sorry. Talk to us more about your morality, Hollywood. Yes, I want to hear from Hollywoodites how to raise kids. That's definitely what I want to hear. So,
well, when they do have a higher moral
diversity, I will say that the best moment of the Oscars was a
moral
winner
ranking than you,
swept from Ke-Huy Quan. You'll remember him as the short round from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Yeah,
he was handed the award.
He's so
by
fucking
Harrison
good.
Ford. I will say it's kind of amazing that Harrison Ford still has not won an acting Oscar, but Ke-Huy Quan, who would have called that? The short round's going to win an acting Oscar before Harrison Ford.
Is it?
But in any case,
has Harrison Ford ever been in anything that's like Academy Award worthy? Like, sure, Star Wars. I would absolutely give it to him for Star Wars, but even back then, Star Wars was not a movie that was like really up for Oscars because sci-fi, like, science fiction movies weren't really considered to be like a genre that the Academy would ever elevate to Best Picture status or even actor, any of those stuff. But like,
he did give a quite wonderful speech last night.
I mean, I love Harrison Ford,
My
but like,
journey started on a boat. I spent a year in a refugee camp, and somehow,
what a fucking king.
I ended up here on Hollywood's biggest stage.
The idea that you're like, oh, it's because he's Asian.
In the movies, I cannot believe it's happening to me. This is the American dream.
Like also keep in mind, like, everyone and everywhere, everything everywhere all at once has to play like at least 4 different versions of their character because it's a multiverse story. Like, they have to play so many different versions and like swap between them constantly. It's such a wacky fucking movie. But like, once you like kind of get a hold of what's happening, it's super compelling. Like,
yeah, that's quite wonderful. That really is like a nice thing.
Yeah, it is.
And I think that's why everybody was rooting for Ke-Huy Quan. The other aspects of sort of the diversity picks were for Best Actor, a straight white male won, but playing a gay white male, of course. An overweight, morbidly obese gay white male. That'd be Brendan Fraser in The Whale. Who
I love how like they give an Oscar to a white guy and Ben still has to find a problem with it. Tell me you're triggered
Austin Butler, who
without telling me
the
you're
best
triggered.
Performance of the year as Elvis, really kind of made a hand with Elvis. But Brendan Fraser won for The Whale.
I liked
Best
Elvis,
Actress.
but like,
she is very good in Everything Everywhere All at Once. The other person, but there was one person who just got kind of crapped upon for even being nominated. That was Andrea Riseborough, who gives, I think, a better performance to Leslie, but doesn't matter because, of course, diversity above all. Best Supporting Actress went to Jamie Lee Curtis, who's a
tell me why the movie is fucking better, Ben. Please, for like, like Ben, you pretend to be a fucking cinephile and like a movie. You pretend to be a movie guy. So fucking tell me why the movie, why whatever fucking movie you just mentioned is better. Because I've never heard of this fucking movie. Like, so hit me with it. Hit me with the why this person was better or whatever. Like,
big sweep, as I say, for Everything Everywhere All at Once all the time. Now, the big shutout here, and it's worth noting here, the big shutout here is Top Gun. So Top Gun, I believe, did not win a single award.
Because Top Gun is fucking just fine. It's fine.
Anything last night?
It's fine.
Top
it's
Gun
just fine.
It won Best Sound. It won Best Sound.
There you go. It won sound. There you go. Sound.
It did not win Best Production Design. It did not win
Why
Best
would it
Film
win
Editing.
Production Design?
It did not win. By the way, it certainly should have won Best Film Editing. The notion that Everything Everywhere All at Once won Best Film Editing is absurd. Everything Everywhere All at Once needed to be edited with a chainsaw. But Top Gun Maverick won.
Whoa. Just because you filmed some fucking planes is not like best editing or some shit. Like, no. Hit me with. You need more than that. You need more than that, Ben.
Even best visual effects that went to Avatar: The Way of Water.
Yeah, no shit, because Avatar always wins.
Because
it always
in
fucking
5 years,
wins.
Nobody's going to be watching Everything Everywhere All at Once.
What's it called?
It's just not going to happen. It's going to be a movie like Birdman or The Revenant. You know, things where in the moment people are like, oh man, that's a great movie, and then no one ever watches it again. I know that critics fell in love with this movie. Again, I think I know the reasons why, but it's not Top Gun.
Would you like to tell me why you didn't, Ben, and why it's not good? Or is it just going to be like do you ever notice conservatives always fucking do this? Instead of actually making an argument to why something is or isn't as good or as bad as they say it is, they always just blame the fucking refs. They always just go, oh, well, critics are too woke, so that's why they like this movie. Instead of actually being honest and being like, okay, I didn't think this movie was that good. These are the reasons why. Do you want to know what movie is that critics really liked? Like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I don't think it's very good. I think it's one of Tarantino's worst movies. He, the director, thinks it's one of his best movies. So I'm like, but I can explain why. I think it's overly long. I think like writing wise, it's like good but not great. I don't really think the character, like Brad Pitt's character, really is anything more than like kind of a like, what's the word, like a Swiss Army character, like a Swiss Army knife of a character. He can always do the thing he needs to be doing in any given moment because he doesn't really have much of an identity. And like Leo does like an amazing job, but his overall story is just kind of like a day of him going on a set, acting, coming home, and then they hang out, and then the kids who went and killed the fucking Manson like family or whatever get fucking killed by Leo and like Brad. Like that's what the movie's building towards. You know, Margot Robbie's in it but doesn't actually do anything. She's not really a character in it. There just wasn't really as much there of the movie, you know. It's like it just wasn't like a lot of good set dressing and a lot of good like shots of like old Hollywood, and you know the way they probably had to stage all of those. That's all well and cool, and I probably maybe would give it like best screenplay if I was handing out if I could pick awardees or whatever the fuck. But like a lot of people fucking love that movie, and I was like, I just didn't like it. But it has nothing to do with like, oh, because it was like conservative. And I don't like I can at least give reasons. Ben has no fucking clue why he doesn't like Everything Everywhere All at Once. So the only reason he really gives is he's like, oh, it's woke, the critics are woke, there's Asians in it, there we go, that's why it's not good. Even though, again, hasn't said one salient critique of the actual movie.
Was clearly the phenomenon of the year. The fact that there were so many people who were opposed to Top Gun was a quasi-political statement.
Nobody was opposed to it. They just didn't
sort of along
vote
the lines of this piece from MSNBC.
Also, don't they have rank choice?
The most insidious movie at the Oscars. This is from Zishan Alim, who said that it's insidious because it is very much in favor of the American war machine as a beacon of virtue and excitement. It's a poisonous kind of nostalgia, one that smuggles love of endless war into a celebration of.
Keep in mind, Top Gun Maverick is not the first like just straight up action movie to not win. Like, let's see, Dune. Well, is Dune an action movie? I guess one could say it is. Dune is the closest thing to like a Top Gun Maverick from last year, and Dune is like a sci-fi action movie. Sci-fi action blockbusters don't do that well at the Oscars because the Oscars isn't the Academy is not a group that generally rewards those movies with like Best Picture. There wasn't even. It doesn't even seem like Sound of Metal. No, that's not. That's like a fucking music movie. Yeah, like there really isn't like you can go back and look at the history of the Oscars. There really isn't this like there's almost never a desire to like go back and award like like blockbusters. It's just not a thing that the Academy does that often. You have like was Arrival a block? Like yeah, like you can look at all these, like none of these are. Also, The Revenant did not win that year. I thought Room won. Oh no, Brie Larson won for Room. Spotlight won that year. But yeah, like you can kind of see the obvious trend. The Academy likes their dramas. That's kind of what they like. Fucking Zero Dark 30 was like kind of an action movie, I guess. Django Unchained, kind of an action movie. But like again, those lose out to like the historical like drama of like Argo or whatever the fuck. Like you can kind of tell like this isn't like Ben wants to make this like a cultural thing, and it like is and it isn't. It is on a different ground in terms of like the Academy doesn't reward blockbusters because they don't see them as on the same level as like a lot of other, I think, more crowd pleasing movies. Like did the fucking Avengers get an Oscar? No. But if we're talking about a movie that people still talk about today and still like you know, and are like still go back and watch, and something that really impacted culture, we would, in 2012, we would have to be talking about like Avengers, right? Like this is kind of how it's always been. It's always been that the Academy doesn't, it was shocking when they did it for the fucking Lord of the Rings. That's what made Lord of the Rings like so fucking important. Like, they fucking gave fucking Best Picture to Crash one year. I remember this. Everyone was fucking furious about this because Crash is fucking dog shit. Like, the whole time you had fucking Capote at Brokeback Mountain. I've never seen Good Luck and Good Night. But yeah, like The Departed, like Departed's kind of more of a drama, but like still like they've never been, like, Gladiator's a good example of like a action movie that won, but even then I don't know if I'd say it's like a blockbuster action movie the same way like something like Top Gun is. But yeah, like they like their dramas. Like, it was never going to win to begin with.
But live action, I think that is one of the kind of subtle reasons that Top Gun had to lose, because it was kind of too pro-America. I wasn't allowed to win. Speaking of people who are not pro-America, one of the people who spoke last night was a guy named Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen,
Unlike Everything Everywhere All at Once,
sure why
that's
Donnie
about
Yen was speaking at the Oscars.
Chinese American immigrant.
As it turns out, Donnie Yen also
that's like
is
about being like living in America
for the Chinese
and assimilating to American culture.
So, according to
Donnie Yen, he's going to be in John Wick.
There's a petition that was actually set up against Donnie Yen doing this, set up by a Hong Kong activist who claimed the decision showed contempt for the people of Hong Kong and that Yen's presence would damage the image and reputation of the film industry. He had opposed the pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong in 2019. He called it a riot.
Oh, cringe.
He was known for starring in the Ip Man series, which is a
Ip Man's
kind
fun.
of kung fu series. He was in Rogue One. He's in the 2020 live-action remake of Mulan. But he is, in fact, a frontman for Chinese positions at the Oscars. Again, not particularly shocking that the Oscars was perfectly fine featuring all of that. Overall, however,
well,
pretty boring.
When
Oscars,
you want
Jimmy Kimmel
access to the
kinda hemmed it
Chinese
in. He
market,
didn't get too political,
that
which I think the Oscars
is
needed
what
to do.
you do.
It's not going to revive the Oscars. Not that the Oscars is still a flagging enterprise by the numbers. It's still going down and down and down and down. Again, the reason
I really love, people on the left do this too, and like, it's one of these things where like people will say simultaneously, and it kind of irks me, where they'll be like, Oscars don't mean anything, and then get really in their fucking feelings about it. And I can't help but just be like, look, can we all just fucking come to an understanding that we all give a shit about the Oscars? Because the Oscars is the longest running, like, is one, like, at least in the US, the longest running, most well-funded, most like high what's the word I'm looking for, like prestigious, like one of the most prestigious like awards that you can get as an Oscar for this or that. Let's not pretend that it's only a big deal when somebody gets it and not a big deal when they get snubbed. It's like it is always a big deal depending on who gets it and who don't. Like, you know, you can say the Oscars are failing, even though, and you know, you can do the whole like, oh, less people are tuning into the Oscars, to which most people be like, less people are tuning into everything. The Oscars do not stream on like, you know, Netflix or HBO or any of these places. It's on like network cable or even basic cable, possibly. I'm not 100% sure what channel they air it on, but like a lot of people have cut the cord. A lot of people don't watch TV. Like in my house, we don't even have TV. We have internet. We don't have any TV. We don't have a box. We don't have any of that shit. So it's like, yeah, like less people are watching TV overall, and not that many people watched the Oscars back then. The Oscars has never been this like huge juggernaut compared to other huge juggernauts like of its time. Like if you go back and compare like the Oscars in the 90s compared to the Super Bowls of the 90s, the Oscars are not going to be competing for the like with that. They'll certainly both be very, very high. But one is obviously like going to, you know, the NFL has continued to keep the Super Bowl at a high viewership, mainly because they've diversified all of the ways that you can watch the show, whereas the Oscars have not. They've stayed rather static in terms of how you watch the actual show.
reason for that is because
But,
the big movies are the ones. The only
you can
two that
pretend it's
really
not a
did,
big
like,
deal,
amazing
but
business
let's
last
be
year were
honest,
Top
it
Gun
is.
and Avatar, and neither of them really cleaned up at all.
Because they're not good
Meanwhile,
movies.
insanity breaking out over at
Avatar's not that
Stanford Law
great.
School.
The story's pretty boring.
So, according to the UK Daily Mail, a federal appeals judge appointed by Donald Trump has now demanded an apology from Stanford Law School after he was invited to speak. His name is Judge Kyle Duncan. He's on the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Action.
He was actually ambushed
Blockbuster.
by an associate dean of equity, diversion, and inclusion named Tyrion Steinbach during a discussion
Are we
on
still
Thursday
talking
night.
about-
Steinbach is a former ACLU lawyer who had
We're not-
previously defended freedom of speech.
We're not still talking about the Oscars, are we? Okay, well, I'm not going to listen to whatever the fuck else Ben's talking about. Either way, love it. Love it. Good job, Ben. Way to prove you have no idea what you're talking about. I always love when people prove that they don't really know what the fuck they're talking about. Okay, so should we do Jordan Peterson? I don't talk about Jordan Peterson a lot. These are only 5 and 6 minute videos. I think we can make it through it, right? I think so. Okay, let's do it. All right, so there is let me switch over real quick. All right, so in the realm of conservative media, Daily Wire, you have like Daily Wire, you have PragerU, you have, I don't know if I want to say Timcast is like a network, but like the two big ones are like Daily Wire and PragerU. And both of them, both of them need to kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? They need to cultivate a mix of audiences, right? They need to cultivate, they need to diversify in a way how they reach certain people. The reason why Candace Owens was on PragerU and moved to Daily Wire is because Daily Wire wanted to seize upon her identity, the way she plays identity politics, to diversify their viewership, to bring in new viewers, hopefully black viewers. Now, will that happen? Who knows? But black viewers to kind of come into the Daily Wire through a safe face that they, ostensibly can recognize and what's the word I'm looking for? They can kind of, if you're black, right, and you like see Daily Wire and you see Ben Shapiro, you're like, what a fucking nerd. He reads like WAP out loud, and then we make remixes, and it's hilarious, right? But like, then you see Candace Owens, you're like, oh, Candace Owens, a fellow black person. Maybe I'll give them a little bit of a listen, just because just to be fair, just to be fair, and then Candace Owens makes points that all of which Ben Shapiro would make, but she puts that seasoning on it. Which means then you go, oh, wait, maybe that like makes sense. It doesn't make more sense. It's just like, it's coming from somebody who, knows how to frame it in a way that, might be advantageous to Daily Wire and, disadvantageous to black people and their place in our society. Point being, my point in all of that saying, we're not talking about Candace Owens. We are going to talk about and watch a video from somebody named Amala. I'm not going to try to pronounce that because I'm just not in the mood right now. This is a woman who works for PragerU, apparently. Apparently this is the, let me see how many, what do we got? 924,000 fucking subscribers? Holy shit, this is a bigger channel than I thought. Wait a minute. How many videos does this person have? 700 videos. With 924,000 subscribers. God damn, man. God damn. Man, it'd be so easy to be fucking conservative. Oh, wait, what is this? Is this like a debate? Ooh, maybe we should watch this. Ooh. What is this? Okay, so it seems like she's the college age person who they trot out to do the anti-college stuff, and also she looks black, so obviously kind of filling that role as well, it seems. Either way, I'm like curious now. Should we watch like this debate or the video I had lined up? Because now I'm kind of disinterested in this. Ooh, okay. We got Triggered High Schooler. God, all these channels are the fucking. It's always this. It's all, man. I feel sorry for this person. This like person has to live their life constantly seeing that picture of them. Like, that's got to be a pain in the ass. Okay, here we go. Fine, let's do.
I don't understand that.
Okay. I want to hear it.
Like teachers
in the bill.
Well, it wasn't written in the bill, but that's why I'm saying that I feel like it's bills like those are being targeted towards gay people.
Washington University and St. Louis. Okay, yeah.
I would argue
so
that the bills also.
I get the kind of sense that this person's one of those like Charlie Kirk. I show up to college campuses and I try to I try to convince people of conservatism. That seems to be, now granted, this has not been a strategy that's worked very well for the right wing, but they keep making efforts. So might as well give them might as well see what they're bringing to the table. So let's just go.
So say that you should not show children heterosexual acts.
It's a kind of a banger intro. I'll give them that.
Hello. So this kind of goes back to the first question.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of confused and like would be interested in your answer about what the difference is between conservatism and like the current Republican Party. Because like something that really drives me away from the Republican Party is like blatant lies and bigotry that I hear coming out of that, and kind of the lack of calling that out from other people as well. So I guess, and like listening to what you're talking about today, it seems like you're very focused on the facts, and that's something that's driving a lot of
facts and knowledge,
like thinking and saying.
Fucking facts and feelings, am I right?
The Republican Party. So
Okay.
I'm confused on how you're.
I'm curious. I would love. Can I get examples of what you mean when you say like they're focused on bigotry or like saying certain things?
So like blatant lies, I guess, would kind of be with the election and like election deniers, and then kind of the lack of people who are calling that out. So I guess, I mean, a good example would be.
So this is okay. So off the bat, the thing that already sticks out to me is this college student has obviously no like media training, and they're probably just like an average person who rolled up and was like, oh, there's like this person speaking, I'll like stop in and see if I can ask them a question or whatever, or she did a speech, whatever it might be. But like the thing you can always notice is like like is she talking to somebody who has like an ideological grounding opposed to her? It doesn't really seem like it. It always seems like these people who go to these college campuses just talk to like some random fuck who like doesn't really know all that much and isn't all that educated on like topics, on issues. Meanwhile, they're walking in with like talking points, with counters to their talking points already prepared, already ready. They already have everything kind of queued up. So obviously, I can only expect that it's going to be a lot of I can only expect this is going to be rather easy for her to skirt by on some of her policy points. But
I mean, you were talking about following the facts and the science with regards to like transgender youth. So I'm just kind of confused on how then you're saying we should follow the facts with respects to that, but then all the kind of Republicans who are ignoring that. And then I guess with the bigotry would be in regards to like the Don't Say Gay law in Florida, and then the lack of like Republicans who are then calling that out.
Yeah, so I'll touch on the Don't Say Gay thing first, then we'll get to the election thing, then we'll get to the Republican thing. The Don't Say Gay bill, I think, is falsely labeled the Don't Say Gay bill. I've actually gone to the page, read the bill itself. It's actually called the Parental Rights and Education Bill. And if you go through...
yes, the classic, that's not what it's called. When, yeah, we know that's not what it's called because you're not going to come out and say it. But okay.
Read the bill itself. A lot of people engaged in all this fanfare and getting angry about a label, which is 3 words that they heard, rather than going and actually reading the bill. And the bill itself talks about just staying away from sexual education that has to do with other sexualities, has to do with gender theory. A lot of people got mad at the bill saying that he was trying to erase African American history. But if you go in and read it, there's actually a full paragraph where he says the school must dedicate time to talking about African American history, including slavery and Jim Crow and all these different things written directly in it. There's nothing in the bill that explicitly says you should not say the word gay or encourages teachers.
Yes. So this is okay. So this is what I mean by like the dishonest nature of how like kind of bills are written. Because what you have to understand is whenever you write a bill, whenever you write any piece of legislation, not only are you writing into law an edict of what is allowed in your society, you are also writing by definition what is not allowed. If you allow for, let's say if you write a bill that allows for the theft of horses, right? If that, if it's like, with this bill, you are allowed to steal, steal horses from your neighbor, right? Because of the way that might be written, the way that the actual law will be implemented will be, okay, well, the law does say that I can steal horses, but it does not say I can't steal goats. It only is referenced to horses or to whatever topic it is. And the issue with the Don't Say Gay bill is its vagueness and its unspecificity. I don't know if that's a word. But like the issue with the Don't Say Gay bill is that like when you say like, oh, it bans people from talking about sexuality and gender, right? To which one has to ask, well, A, what does that mean? And B, in what context? Because if you're a teacher, right, and you are, and specifically the bill, if I remember correctly, mentions like not educational time. It's like it mentions. She popped it up for a hot second. Can I see that really quickly? I don't. Come on. There we go. General parental rights in education requires district school boards to adopt procedures that comport with certain provisions of the law, notifying students as parents of specific information, again, not given, requires such procedures to reinforce fundamental rights of parents to make decisions regarding upbringing and control of their children. Again, this is rather unspecific. We don't know what it pertains to, because it's, it's specified, parents of specified, let's escape. Prohibits school district from adopting procedures or student support forms that prohibit school district's personnel from notifying parent about specified information or that encourage student to withhold from parents such information. Prohibits school districts. Yeah, this is like, so this part of the bill is like, hey, if a kid says something that you think, or something specifically that we deem a parent should know, that being, if your student comes to you, says that they think they're gay, you have to tell their parents, even though that's not information that like maybe the child wanted to be shared at that point. Maybe they weren't ready. Maybe their parents aren't accepting of that. Like, this is compelling teachers to basically rat out their non-straight students. Like, that's what this is kind of getting at. Prohibits school. Okay, here we go. Prohibits school district personnel from discouraging or prohibiting parental notification and involvement of critical decisions affecting students' mental, emotional, and physical well-being. Notice how none of this is specific, by the way. All of this is incredibly broad and could literally be anything. Like, none of this is specific. And the unspecificity, again, don't know if that's a word, I think it might be, but the unspecific nature of this is the goal. You want to write restrictive laws, but not draw like concrete borders around the consequences of those. Because you have to think to yourself, who is this bill for, right? It's for people who, it's for parental rights. Well, what do those generally mean? Who are we talking about when we talk about parental rights? Well, generally, the people we're thinking of and the people that we're referencing are people who come back and say, hey, this teacher did not tell me that my kid said that they think that they're gay or whatever, right? It's going to be, and let's be honest here, right-wing parents. This is for conservative parents to have a tool to compel teachers to give them information that their kids might not want to be shared with them yet, and to punish those teachers, for giving any of those possibly gay students a refuge, someone to talk to, somebody who wouldn't rat them out to their possibly violent family members. Like, that's who this is going to affect. Is this going to affect parents whose kids are straight and tell their teachers that they have a crush on this or that person? No. Because even if a teacher reports that, you know what the parents are going to do? They're going to go like, I don't care. I already know this. Or, great, thanks for letting me know. But do you notice how, like, this will only negatively affect the LGBT kids in that classroom? Like, anyway, let's see. Prohibit school, prohibiting, prohibits classroom, oh, here it is. Prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels. So, obviously certain grade levels, not specific. So that could mean first grade, that could mean fourth grade, that could mean 8th grade, that could mean 12th grade. We don't know because they didn't write it into the bill. They said certain because they want the people who decide this, the parents who are going to be using this bill, to have leeway to decide what certain means. Certain grades, well, I don't know, 8th grade is a certain grade, so that grade is the grade that I think. It's so that you don't have to draw a distinct line as to when you've crossed into sussy territory, basically. And also prohibits classroom discussion. Well, what the fuck is classroom discussion? What the fuck is classroom, what is the learning part of the class? Like the question always becomes, what's discussion? Because there is no legal definition of classroom discussion. It doesn't exist. There isn't classroom discussion is everything from going over a lesson of how to spell juxtaposition, how to fucking add 8 plus 4, and then, one of your students asked you how your weekend was, and you said you went out with your husband and you're a guy, and then they go, you have a husband, and you go, yeah, I'm gay. Is that classroom discussion? Well, right-wing parents certainly are going to think it is, because there's no concrete, and they're going to say, you're teaching my kid that being gay is okay, or you're teaching him about being gay simply by divulging that you are gay. Like, it's so vaguely written that it can be interpreted in any possible way. And again, that's kind of the reason why it's written that way. It's written to be vague so that it can apply to as many people as possible. Because if you think, and let's be clear about this, if you think that there are parents who are going to be upset with kids coming home and telling their parents, oh yeah, my straight woman teacher had a nice weekend with her husband, they went to the fair or whatever, do you think that's who this bill is going to come after? Do you think there are parents who are going to have a problem with that? No, because there's not a political and ideological opposition to heterosexual couples. There simply isn't. But there is to gay couples. So when gay couples, or even just a gay person, is a teacher and expresses their identity, and even when I say express, again, that word is doing a lot of work. Even if they identify as non-straight, that could be identified as classroom discussion if that conversation happened in a classroom. Requires school districts to notify parents of healthcare services authorizes parents to bring action against school districts to obtain declaratory judgment, provides for additional award of injunctive relief, damages, and reasonable attorney fees, and court costs to certain parents. And this is like the other part of it. No school is going to allow their teachers to talk about, if you're like a gay teacher, again, your school might tell you, hey, you can't talk about this stuff. You can't put a pride flag up. You can't put a picture of your husband up, because if the kids see it and they start talking about it in school, they're going to go home. They're going to tell their parents that they were talking about their gay teacher at school. And then we're going to get fined. We're going to have to pay legal fees. We're going to have to pay money. So we need you to keep it quiet. It's a way to silence gay people. That's all this is. Like, like when you think about it for 2 seconds, it's rather obvious. But, you know, of course, but, you know, the student that she's talking to probably hasn't read this, probably isn't aware of any of this, probably just like heard like, hey, I heard this bill, it does this thing. What the fuck? And she goes, actually, Sweaty, that's not what it says. It just says that parents can't talk about sexual topics with kids, which is not what it says. It says prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels, to which I don't know what any of that is. None of it is specific. None of it is actually concrete. It's all vague. It's all just don't mention, don't mention the gays, which funnily enough kind of translate to don't say gay. Don't say the gays exist. But anyway.
Bill. And if you go through and read the bill itself, a lot of people engaged in all this fanfare and getting angry about a label, which is 3 words that they heard, rather than going and actually reading the bill. And the bill itself talks about just staying away from sexual education that has to do with other sexualities, has to do with gender theory.
Yeah. So see, it's like staying away from topics, but it's like, wait, but like it doesn't say that. It says classroom discussion. It's not specific. It doesn't say lesson plan. It doesn't say educational time. It just says classroom discussion, which if we're talking about like definitionally, the 2 words are classroom, which is a noun, it's a place, and discussion, which can mean any form of back and forth conversation. Discussion is everything you do in a classroom.
Theory. A lot of people got mad at the bill saying that he was trying to erase African American history. But if you go in and read it, there's actually a full paragraph where he says the school must dedicate time to talking about African American history, including slavery and Jim Crow and all these different things written directly in it. There's nothing in the bill that explicitly says.
Let's see. I'm actually kind of curious because I don't remember that. Let's see. American Studies? Let's see. Oh, wait. Yeah, wait. Are we talking about the, Florida rejects, let's see, backlash after Florida rejects African American Studies course. Where is it? Here we go. Is this the one he's talking? These aren't the same bills, first of all. I want to, like, see if I can find it. Rejected after his administration rejected the advanced placement African American Studies course. Okay, I don't know what she's talking about. We're just moving on. I don't know what specific bill she's talking about.
Should not say the word gay, or encourages teachers to not talk about the fact that you can have a family that has 2 dads or 2 moms. So I think that was a lot.
We just looked at the bill. It's vague enough that it could be interpreted.
Florida's controversial Don't
Say
Gay law takes effect today. Don't say gay bill. The Don't Say Gay. Don't say gay. The Don't Say Gay bill. Don't say gay law. Don't say gay bill. Don't say gay bill. Don't say gay bill.
And switching things around that got people angry.
Okay, can I just, are you going to switch topics? Could I follow on that?
You can respond, yeah.
Okay, so then my question, I guess, following up on that would be, would you be against?
Yeah, like again, like this dude isn't really prepared for this. She already knows what to say to, like, what do you say about the Don't Say Gay bill? Well, it doesn't actually say don't. It doesn't even say gay in the entire thing. So I don't know what you're talking about. Even though it's like you didn't need to write gay. There's a lot of different ways that you can just write things out of law, or into law, I should say, like without specifically naming that term. This is also, again, this gives parents the ability to seize on this. This gives parents the ability to enforce this law, because you don't go to the police and you enforce it. As a parent, you complain to the school and then file a lawsuit. So like the enforcers of this are parents, who then have to be reimbursed by the schools Like, so yeah, like all of the pressure is going to be put on the teachers to not discuss sexual orientation or gender in the classroom ever. So if it comes up, if it just comes up, you're not really talking about that specific issue, you might be, you might trip that law, and now your employer is like, shit, we need to, you can't talk about that. You can't talk about your marriage right now. It's too dangerous. It's too, we're too much in danger of liability on that.
Than like a kindergartner being like read a story that has like 2 dads or 2 moms.
I mean, that doesn't necessarily make me upset. I wouldn't go running to the school board about it. I would question.
Somebody would, though. Maybe you wouldn't. But what if somebody else does?
Conversation that talks about relationships in school. But if you're just showing a picture book and it has 2 dads in it, okay, whatever. I'm not upset about it. I think what
it's funny. She says she's not upset, but
parents are really upset about is things much more nefarious than showing 2 dads in a book. I mean,
wait, no, whoa. How many times have we heard conservatives say that, like, it's like if you show your kid a picture book with 2 gay dads, that it's indoctrination, that they're indoctrinating your child. Now, obviously she's lying. She's being dishonest here, because like I can point to you any number of examples of Republicans getting up in their fucking gravy about it. But like, yeah, like they're rather triggered by just the existence, just the reference of gay people in any children's media. It becomes like, oh, you're trying to indoctrinate my kid.
I mean, talking about homoeroticism and pornography and different ways to engage in sexual acts, gender confusion, that's what's really brought parents to the forefront of this discussion. It's not something as simple and as harmless as showing 2 dads in a book.
Okay, but like, do you understand that like that is in Florida? Like that is what's not allowed to happen though?
No, I don't understand that.
Like
That's
teachers
what's in the bill.
Well, it wasn't written in the bill, but that's why I'm saying that I feel like it's bills like those are being targeted.
Yeah, you don't write that directly into the bill. You just write the systems. This is the difference between writing. This is the difference between soft bigotry and like hard bigotry. Hard bigotry will just write people out of, just out of the society. What soft bigotry is going to do is write in its conception, write systems that will bear down on certain groups more than others. And that's how you target groups while having the plausible deniability being like, look, we didn't say that gay teachers can't talk about being gay. We're just saying that if, a student happens to tell their teacher that they talked about, or if a student tells their parents that they talked to their teacher about being gay and it happened in the classroom, that then that parent can go and sue the school, and then the school has to pay for their legal fees and a bunch of other stuff. So the school, from that point on they could not tell that teacher, hey, like, it's going to cost us a lot of money if you get us in trouble. So we need everybody to kind of, watch their talk and try not to mention as much as they can, their relationships if they are gay. Like, that's how this works. Again, you would have to be stupid to not understand the system that they built in Florida. And again, the mechanism of enforcement is not one through the police or through any legal organization. It's through citizens. The citizenry are the enforcement, meaning you have to deal with parents being the ones to decide, is this really worth a lawsuit, or is this just me being up in my shit? Which parents aren't really that great at ascertaining
say that you should not show children heterosexual acts. So it's not targeting of any kind to any sort of children heterosexual.
Sorry.
In the bill, but that's why I'm saying that I feel like it's bills like those are being targeted towards gay people and lesbians. Well,
I would argue that the bills also say that you should not show children heterosexual acts. So,
well, she is in this respect, she is being honest. The bill does technically the way the bill is written, you could complain about your child hearing about a straight, like learning about their teacher's straight marriage. That also is a thing that happened. Now, the real question becomes, do you think that's going to happen? Is there a movement right now in America that is targeting heterosexual teachers for being groomers, for transing their kids, for, you know, any of the other stuff that they say about LGBTQ teachers? Is there? No. It's simply not something that's going to happen. You see, you write a law into effect that would say, like, look, you can't talk about, nobody is allowed to talk about straight couples or gay couples. Meanwhile, there is only one side that is oppositional from an ideological standpoint to gay couples, but not straight couples. And you write that law on an even ground because you know that implementation wise, it is only going to fall on one group, which would be the gay group.
So it's not targeting of any kind to any sort of sexuality. I wouldn't want to send my kindergarten to school and have them talk about a man and a woman having sex. I think the bill explicitly lays out.
Would you want them to talk about their
conversations
marriage?
are appropriate for school and what conversations
What is happening?
are not. And sexual conversations.
Classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 or in a manner that is not age appropriate. What is age appropriate? Or developmentally appropriate for students in I'm assuming it's going to say Florida. So again, classroom instruction. What's the difference between classroom instruction and classroom discussion? If you can tell me, if you can describe one of those without describing the other and show me that that's a legal definition, then maybe we can have a conversation. But it's not. Also, on sexual orientation and gender identity may not occur. So yeah, it's, you know, this is basically like, hey, if you're, you know, even if your first grader comes to you and is like, I like boys, then what? You have to tell their parents? You don't know if their parents are, how they're going to react to that. Same with their gender identity. If there's like a kid who thinks that they might be trans and, you know, that's kind of an early onset thing, what? You're just supposed to rat the kid out to the parents who you don't know? I'm sure if you have an understanding that the parents are understanding, or, you know, that they're going to be sympathetic to that, then, like, you know, if you're a teacher, you're like, yeah, I'd share that with this parent. You know, ask any teacher. There are things about each of their students that they would tell some of their parents and they wouldn't tell others, because they know after interacting with their kids and interacting with their parents, they get some kind of idea of the dynamic, and they understand the things that will get those kids in, you know, trouble. But like, you'll also quickly understand what will put those kids in danger. Not just trouble, not just get them in trouble with their parents, but put them in danger of being harmed by their parents.
Conversations about sexuality, identification are just not what we send children to school for.
But would you be against it, like a fifth grader just reading a book where there's a relationship?
We send kids to school to be socialized.
A woman, where like their sexuality is discussed.
I mean, not necessarily, but I don't know why that book has to be given to that child from the school. I think there are very few things that a school.
Why is
should
any
be
book
taking
given to any
care of,
kid?
and that is math, reading, writing, science, and maybe some home economics. But as far as engaging in conversations about any sort of relationship or sexuality,
Home economics, isn't that? Whoa. Home economics, isn't that a gendered, like, field of study? If I remember correctly, home ec was for the girls when I was going to high school. Home ec was for the girls, wood shop was for the boys. That's how it went. I took home ec because I'm a girl deep down. No, I raised by a single mother. That's why. What happens when you're raised by women mostly is you tend to gravitate towards home economics. But then, even then, like, now think about it, a lot of people took home ec. Our woodshop class wasn't really all that. From what I remember seeing, it wasn't really that popular in my school. But yeah.
And I don't know where the school train ran away from us that they now feel that they are the arbiters of teaching children anything that has to do with relationships. I think those are conversations.
Yeah, that's fucking wild. Like, tell me if you've never, maybe these people didn't do it, but I had teachers that I was close with, that I, like, had really good rapport with, and I would go to them with, like, questions about life, with advice, with anything else, because, like, sometimes your parents don't really know, like, what it is to be a kid, but your teachers certainly do. They're with you all throughout the year. They're constantly exposed to teenagers. So like to a degree, they're usually like, yeah, I kind of, you know, I see you guys a lot. I see how you guys interact. You know, they have a much stronger understanding, I think, of the social aspects of being a kid than like your parents are gonna have. Your parents are working most of the time. They don't know what like your society that's in your school is kind of looks like. Like that's not really something that I think they're nearly as aware of as like teachers are. Teachers are always like a part of that student society. So like, but like again, this is like when did teachers start talking to kids about something other than math, English, and science? It's like since the dawn of fucking time. That's when like people talk to other people about other topics than the one that they're like supposed to be talking to them for. Like if you've never had a conversation with a teacher that wasn't on the topic that they're like, you know, if you never talked to your history teacher about literally anything else, then I guess maybe you'd have this perspective. But like in that case, I'm like, were you socialized properly? Because like I talked to my like teachers about all sorts like movies, like comics, all sorts of topics, because I wanted to socialize with them on a level that was different from like student and academics. Like academics is only a part of what we send kids to school for. We send them to be socialized and to, you know, learn the hard, like, you know, studies.
Or dad and dad, or mom and mom.
What about the relationships between like men and women? In the sense that like there are plenty of books where a man and a woman are together.
Sure, yeah. If you want like we go on a date and go get lunch together or something like that, sure. But again, that's not what parents are coming to the school for.
But I would disagree, and I would say I think there are plenty of people who are upset.
Oh,
that is being taught, and that is what's happening.
You could say that, and you'd probably find a few Christian people who go.
Well, I think it's more than a few. If we're gonna be
Also, it doesn't take a few. It literally only takes one. It only takes one person to put the economic risk on any school for that school to shut that teacher down and be like, hey, like you need to not mention that you're gay, because it only takes one parent to catch us a fine. Like at the end of the day, the risk is monetary. You're putting on the line the finances of a public school that's already probably a bit underfunded on the backs of like, again, that can be risked on one individual person in any school district. It only takes one person to do this to some teacher to get the rest of the districts in that state to basically, quite frankly, shove their teachers back into the closet.
Realistic in Florida.
If they want to continue to educate their kids,
plenty of
like
people who say I'm against that in school, but I think it is about being forthright with what we have with our kids. Like when I went to school and we were going to get any sort of sexual education, I was sent home with a piece of paper a week before, a day before, that said, hey, we're going to have a conversation about sexual activity and relationships with your child. Here's what we're going to discuss. If you'd like to opt out,
yeah, that's called sex ed. By the way, conservatives not pro sex ed.
I don't know why that it's such a difficult thing to do in the modern age, and why teachers feel the need to inject these conversations into classrooms without parents knowing.
Also, again, if you're not actually teaching your K through like 6 kids sex ed, again, the way the law is written, it's broad enough, and classroom discussion and classroom instruction don't have hard definitions, meaning if it comes up at all, any legal reading could argue that any discussion at all, if you didn't forewarn the parents, is you breaking that law. Like, again, there's a reason why it's written as broad as it is.
I think a great way to mitigate this problem as a whole is to engage in curriculum transparency, where at the beginning of every year, when you send your child to school, you get a little book that says, here's what we're teaching. Here are the resources your kid is going to look at.
Is that not like
you can look at these resources.
They do know
yourself.
that they get
If you have a
syllabuses
problem
at the
with
beginning
any
of
the
school years,
resources
yeah?
you're going to give your child, notify us. And it's a very simple issue. To just put the power back in the hands of parents where it should have been from the beginning. And it feels weird to meet such resistance.
Also, the idea that you would do this for every single parent, because keep in mind, what they want is for like the parents, each individual parent, to sign off on a lesson plan. But then like, what do you do with like if like some parents like, no, I do not want my kid reading Great Gatsby, but they're like there's like 2 of them in a classroom of 30 kids. What do you do with those 2 kids? How do you what? You give those 2 a different book, and then what? Those 2 have to do a different book, which means you have to plan. You can't plan your lessons around the Great Gatsby and the reading thereof. Those kids need to now go to a different class or something. Like, to accommodate this would like would necessitate so many extra resources on any school. Like, no, this is unrealistic.
Insistence on allowing parents to be able to make that choice.
Also,
for their kids, not
parents
necessarily
aren't
resistance from
educators.
you,
Most of the
from,
time, they're
left-leaning
dumb
people at
fucks.
large.
Okay, thank you. And then I mean, don't necessarily agree with that, but I guess just to go to the second.
Yeah. What was the second thing again? Republicans?
Republicans, conservatisms, and then also about, I mean, just following the facts with regards to like science regarding like puberty blockers, and then ignoring the science and the
Jesus.
facts with regard to the election.
Yeah. So what is interesting is that when I say follow the science when it comes to puberty blockers and transgenderism, the question becomes what science? Because in the United States of America, science seems to be controlled by this totalitarian force of left-leaning people who are willing to silence anybody.
The silence doesn't agree with me, therefore it doesn't count.
There's a neuroscientist by the name of Deborah So who wrote a book called
We found yes. We found one person who disagrees with the field of basically all psychology. We are hedging our bets on one doctor versus an entire field of study. Yes.
To substantiate what we know to be true, but for some reason can't get unbiased research. I think that's why a lot of Republicans feel the way they
Well, let's be clear. You want biased research. What you want is research that affirms your beliefs. That just doesn't exist. I talked to somebody about all of this. It just doesn't exist. We have no evidence to show any of the the negative effects of puberty blockers, the negative effects of trans affirming care. We don't have any information on it. There is nothing that points us in the direction that this would be that we just don't have any evidence for it. There's nothing there. There aren't like studies that are like out there that are like, oh, look at the effects of puberty blockers. Yeah, there are side effects. That's kind of a thing that they've always had. If you want to, honest to God, if you want a really good discussion on this, Vosh had a talk with a former Daily Wire reporter, and I want to say like maybe the second half of their discussion was about kind of the trans healthcare stuff in a really interesting conversation. I think I disagreed with her overall on her points, but like she came to the conversation with like a real concern, with a real argument, and with a real like care, and not just like, oh well, the science is like biased. And it's like, all right, well, you can complain about that all you want, but unless you have something concrete to show me, then you can fucking jog off. Because again, all of these people all say the same thing. It's always, oh, the scientists are biased. Oh, this is biased. Oh, we're right, but da-da-da. And it's like, how about you prove that and then come talk to me? But they never want to prove it. They never want to actually prove any of their stances. They just want to blindly kind of wave at like, look how many doctors are not conservative. And I'm like, well, so what? Guess what? There are conservative doctors. I'm sure they make good science, but I guess on this topic, you all are a bunch of dumb fucks. Like, I can't help you on this one. Like, come up with the evidence, then come talk to me. But don't do this like, oh, because then they'll come up with evidence and they're like, see, to which I have to say like, then I get to be like, oh, well, I think that's biased, so fuck off with your evidence. Because like that, like if we want to play this game, that's all we'll do. We'll all just retreat to our, all the rest of that. I'm like, fucking spare me with some of this. Like,
they do about elections. Now, whether they're right or wrong, I don't know. I haven't looked into any of the auditing they've done of the elections, and I don't necessarily concern myself with that conversation.
Yes, can't defend it, so not going to try. Probably smart.
A sown seed of mistrust. They have mistrust in the institutions and systems as they stand.
Well, the question is why.
Whether or not you feel a certain way about the elections, that mistrust is rightful. I mean, we're finding out now that the FBI, which is a government agency, is now in contact with big tech like Facebook and Twitter.
What does it have to do with the
actively
elections?
Auditing and censoring information
What does that have to do with the
prior
elections?
to election cycles happening. And this is noted. We have the emails from the FBI. The Twitter files have come out. So
Yes, the Twitter files, the totally.
whether or not they're right about the election,
you
is
know,
really
the
not necessarily the problem. The problem is you have.
I love that. I love that when they do like the, are they right? I can't really say anybody's right about that, but that's not the point. That's not the point. The point isn't that they're correct about the election. The point is that they're asking questions.
A large portion of Americans.
When you have to back up to,
little
I'm just
no
asking
faith
questions.
in
It
the
means that you don't
systems
really have a
that
defense of your positions.
They've always had faith in for the most part, and I think that's what we should be addressing.
Somebody hasn't been paying attention to politics since
but,
like 2020. Like that tells me if you think Republicans have been like, if you think the Republican base and Republican voters have been trustful of the election process for, you know, all of their lives, I'm sorry, but like you're either lying or you what is this? Are the students getting at least C's in that classroom? Probably. But like you're either lying by telling me like you're like, oh well, Republicans have always trusted the elections. I'm like, first of all, Republicans have been bitching about elections since fucking Reagan. Please fucking spare me. Especially if we want to talk about in the 90s and in the early 2000s. Do you know how many Republicans were bitching about the 2000 election? Like, considering they got it stolen for this side and they still were complaining about it. Same with like 08 and the whole fiasco that happened in 08, and, you know, a black man became president, so Republicans fucking mauled it for 10 years. Like, please spare me with this. Like, they've always been reassured of like the vote or whatever. They've never trusted it. Every time they've lost, they've complained that there's some outside alien force as to why they lost an election. Every single time they've been consistently anti-democratic in that way. Fueled by right-wing media, fueled by talk radio. Like if you're not aware of that, then like, again, you're either lying or you're just like uneducated on that. Like, yeah, I can't help you from that point. Like, you need to go back and like do your history on the Republican Party. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, you know, if you don't remember Florida in like 2000, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like you know, you're just playing dumb. Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous because Gore fucking conceded early, and then the fucking Supreme Court was like, yep, we're just gonna boot it to W, because there was a bunch of wasn't it like if I remember correctly, they like referenced, it was like, you know, they wanted the count to get done. They wanted Americans to be like assured that like the vote, you know, we had a president by like X date, you know, we couldn't let them count for too long. And part of that was because like there were Republican operatives actively like, you know, pressuring vote counters to like, you know, stop counting, stop the vote, just call it, Bush is ahead right now, or just call it for Bush, call it a day. Meanwhile, when they went back and investigated the votes in Florida, Gore actually won Florida, which means he would have won the presidency. But, you know, and you know, no love to Democrats. The fact that Democrats never fought on that issue, fucking cowards. But like, you know, yeah, Republicans and fucking sanctity of the vote. Fucking spare me. They've never cared about the sanctity of the vote. W is mostly trash because like the dude himself wasn't really much of a president. He was mostly like a puppet for fucking what is his name? What's his name? Fuck, I don't remember his name. Oh shit! Wait, what was fucking Bush's VP? Was that Cheney? Yeah, that was fucking yeah. He was pretty much a fucking like puppet for Cheney. Let's be honest. And the military-industrial complex. Like that's why he like, you know, that's why he never you know, it's why we got into the war. It's why we, you know, spent all that time for basically nothing. But Cheney, yeah, thank you. But anyway, okay. So that's gonna be the end of it. My fucking brain hurts. Like, holy shit. You know, sometimes I do this show and I get done with it and I'm like, man, really good topics, really good engagement, like just really good, like a good, just a good, like a good meal. Like you're like, damn, a lot of good elements in there. And I'll be honest with you, after this, very few times this happened, but this show, man, my fucking brain hurts from the bank shit. Fucking annoyed with the like utter stupidity of Tim Pool, and also Ben Shapiro mostly just annoyed me because he didn't want to give his answers. But like, I'm gonna go lay down, and then I'm gonna have to get up and edit some of this. But yeah, sorry. I want to apologize. I feel the episode was a little lackluster. My energy was just not there. It just got drained from me listening to the bank stuff. But either way, let's see. I know we have some stuff tomorrow. We got to talk about the Arkansas Learns Act, which is like, it's a whole mess of stuff. I need to grab some more videos, I think. Actually, well, this one should be all right. But apparently, they're letting kids, they're kind of rolling back some child labor protections, so that's great. Along with kind of passing it through like what seems like a kind of trying to pass it through the Trojan horse of doing educational reform. But yeah, we'll look at that. We'll look at the Jordan Peterson clip, and then we'll look at the quartering complaining about The Last of Us, because that'll be fun. I can just dunk on him. That's easy content right there. But either way, that's the end of the show for tonight. Yeah, if you are not already, you should probably follow and probably subscribe. If not, your device might self-destruct. I can't, I'm not sure, but it might, so you should probably just subscribe and follow on Twitch. You should just do that just in case, just in case. But either way, I'll see all of you tomorrow. Everyone have a nice night. And yeah, like I said, I'm gonna go ice my brain because it hurts.